One of the most picturesque racing circuits you'll find in North America lies just outside Danville, Virginia. Virginia International Raceway, and it is iconic and it is historic. It is one of the most challenging racetracks you'll find, as we just said, just outside Danville, Virginia, right on the North Carolina-Virginia state line, sits VIR. And what a racetrack it is. Uphill, downhill, high speed, low speed. It has it all. Best passing zones, turn 1, maybe up into turn 12, certainly at the end of the long back straightaway, turn 14. And then that rush down through the roller coaster through turn 17, known as Hawk Pen, and onto the front straightaway, and you completed a lap here at VIR. Welcome in, everyone. IMSA Prototype Challenge competition, round 5 of 6. Championship is closing down, and it is incredibly tight. Only 10 points separate the championship leader, Maurice Krantz, from his nearest competitors, Josh Sargé and Dakota Dickerson. 10 points in today's terms is 1 point in the point scoring of the past. Welcome in, everyone. Brian Hill along with Jeremy Shaw. And Jeremy, we've had a lot of rain over the weekend here. The racetrack itself is dry. The rain should be gone, according to the weather forecasters anyway. But that grass and that red clay, it is wet and it is slick.
It is. Good morning, Brian, and it's a challenging racetrack for the teams and the drivers. In terms of the engineers for these cars, do you set the car up for a straight line speed, because there's 3 pretty fast straightaways here at VIR, or do you set it up to be optimal for the car through these 17 corners? It's a tricky trade balance there for the drivers. It's a physical challenge as well, lots of ups and downs, elevation changes, and just a challenging racetrack that everybody, this is one of all drivers' wish list to race here at VIR, and of course to win.
Well, and it's interesting as well when you look at the front row, Maurice Krantz, and we'll talk more about the grid just a second. In the 21, he is in a Duquesne chassis. Dan Goldberg, who starts alongside, is in a Ligier. You'll see that throughout the field. We have Duquesne and Ligier chassis. We've seen the Duquesne in the past, Jeremy, have the better straight line speed, and the Ligier seems to have a little better high-speed cornering loads, and so you got to kind of pick your poison here, as you were alluding to.
That's exactly right. You know, it is a trade-off here. What's interesting, if you look down the grid, I mean, we'll talk about the names in a moment, but on every row except for one, there's a Ligier and a Duquesne. So, I mean, it looks like they're really, really closely matched, at least after qualifying, which of course was held in wet conditions, however, rather than dry, as we are now.
2 different classes of prototype challenge cars out there, the P3-1 and the P3-2. P3-2 cars, the last year's model, the P3-1 cars updated, and so the Norma was the predecessor to the Duquesne, and what we saw a lot of times, Jeremy, was it took that chassis a couple of laps to get to speed, but when it got there, it had the better straight line speed. We've seen a little bit of a change with the new iteration of both the Ligier and the Duquesne. They seem to be a little more equal in lap time. The Duquesne seems to get up to temperature, pressure, and therefore speed a little faster than its predecessor did.
That's going to be very interesting to see during this race. You're right, though, with the previous generation of cars, on most tracks, the Duquesne, or Norma as it was then, seemed to have a slight advantage over the Ligiers. But now the new generation of cars, Ligier's put a massive amount of work into its development of its car, the JSP320, to bring it up to the pace of the Duquesne. And I think for most tracks this year, the Ligier might have a very slight edge, but it certainly isn't the same sort of edge that was in the balance the other way around with the previous generation of cars.
Well, and of course, the biggest curveball thrown this weekend is that this is a 3-hour event. The preceding 4 races in the championship and the final round at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta will all be and have been 1 hour and 45 minutes. And so a 3-hour race completely changes the complexion of the strategy that you want to use as you look at the grid there on the left side of the screen. 2 pace laps here, and we should note that 3-hour clock starts at the beginning of the second pace lap, which we are on.
We are indeed, and I think the reason for that was a slight delay to the start of this race because of an incident during a previous qualifying session, so we're kind of backed up a little bit, but a lot of racing to come today, and I want to make sure they get everything in. Plus, yesterday in qualifying, it was wet, the track was wet, so very different conditions today in the dry, and it's going to be a challenge for these drivers.
Well, I think the racetrack's going to be completely different as well, Jeremy. It doesn't have a lot of rubber on it because of the rain that we've had throughout the weekend. It's going to change from the drop of the green to the drop of the checkered flag, and it's what kind of an adaptation have you made on your setup? Why don't you take us through the grid?
Yeah, and actually, correct myself there. It was a practice session yesterday morning. It was in the wet. Qualifying was actually in the dry. Let's run down the starting order. And starting at the back in 15th position for 47 Motorsports, in car number 47 is John Brownson. Row 7 of the grid, number 54, Josh Sargé, one of the championship contenders. They had a problem yesterday with a broken drive shaft on the first lap of qualifying, so did not set a representative lap. Alongside him on the grid is Lewis Hamilton in car number 60. Row 6 on the outside, Danny Koch, the championship leader for Conquest Racing in the P3-2 category, that's car number 61. Alongside Mike Watt in car number 15, another P3-2 contender effectively on the pole of the P3-2. There'll be 2 cars in that class here. Row 5, Mark Sharon in car number 3, alongside Joe Robillard in car number 43. Row 4 on the outside is Antoine Comeau in car number 34, alongside Ari Baylog in car number 33. Row 3, Brian Thenis in car number 17, alongside Jason Rabe in car number 74. Row 2, Alan Brynjolfsson, another championship contender in car number 7 for Volt Racing with Archangel, alongside the JDC Motorsports entry of the Grant brothers. Keith Grant will start car number 40. Onto the front row of the grid is in second position, car number 6, the Performance Tech Motorsports Ligier JS P320 for Dan Goldberg, and on the pole again, as he has been in all races this season, for Mueller Motorsports America in the Chicane car number 21, the championship leader from Germany is Moritz Kranz.
Well, you said for every race, 5 of 5 poles belong to Maurice Krantz, and I'm just going to crack the box open. I'm not going to really open Pandora's box completely, but Maurice Krantz is one of those guys that a lot of people shake their head at when they kind of scratch their head when they look at driver ratings. You've got to be bronze or silver to run in the prototype challenge category. Maurice Krantz listed as a bronze driver by the FIA, but you look at his experience, his resume, and certainly his performance in 2021 in the IMSA Prototype Challenge category, and you kind of got to wonder if that might change here at the end of the year. 5 pole positions in 5 races. Krantz in the white and blue, number 21, driver's right, will lead the field to green, and alongside that 6, the blue and red, Dan Goldberg. Goldberg has been impressive the last season in the Prototype Challenge category, and right behind Goldberg, look at that bright yellow 7, Alan Brynjolfsson inching to go, the yellow 40 right beside, green flag waves, Krantz leads the field down to 1. We talk about the racetrack being dry, but Jeremy, if you get off the racetrack today, you are going for a ride.
Yeah, there's been quite a bit of rain over the weekend, so the grass is pretty slick. Some large runoff areas, but I tell you what, when the grass is slick, you get across those runoff areas pretty darn quickly. But a nice clean start there. There is Antoine Comeau looking to the inside to try and make up a position in turn 3. Unable to make that move stick this time around. But it's Moritz Kranz who leads from the pole position.
And you talk about the pole position, he's on pole by 1.7 seconds, an unheard of amount, and I think the racetrack just getting better as he was out there, and he was out there at the right time when it finally got into its peak. And Krantz was just devastating to the competition in qualifying. Now leads up through the S's, flat out in a prototype challenge car through the climbing S's all the way to turn 11, on the brakes hard, downshift, down 2 gears, 3 gears, through Oak Tree, onto the back straightaway, and these cars will reach top speeds of somewhere between 163 and 167 miles an hour by the time they get to the end of the back straightaway here at VIR and get on the brakes for turn 14.
Yeah, where they had to lose about 100 miles an hour to head through that corner to the top of the hill, heading down the hill, down towards Hogpen at the bottom of the hill. Great classic racetrack this with not just corner names, corner numbers, I should say, but corner names as well.
Antoine Comeau in the 34, the white and red number 34, really feeling racy right now, sharing that car with Colin Mullen. another impressive young driver. Colin Mullen has been on a charge of late in different types of cars. In another series, he's won the last 2 races, also has a podium and a second place finish in a Mercedes GT4 based machine. So Colin Mullen can get it done in both a GT car and a prototype. Right now, his teammate Antoine Cameau in the 34, taking it to the 17 just in front, trying to find a way by.
He is, and Antoine Cameau, he's a bond trader by profession, originally from Canada, based these days in Chicago. Looking to the inside there of Barry Balog, but not quite close enough to make a move into turn 4. So he remains there in the 7th position. And it was a tricky qualifying session for Antoine Cameau. There was a red flag during the session caused by that car failure for the championship contending car, number 54, George Sarget. And after that red flag, Antoine Cameau lined up at the pit exit rather than in his pit stall. The result of that, a drive-through penalty. So with the interruption and then having to make a drive-through penalty as well, he really didn't get a flying lap in. That's why he qualified much farther down the position, down the order than he'd expected. In the 8th place, he's made up 1 position at the start. It's actually Brian Thielers who's trying to get past their number 17 car. He did get past Ari Balog on the first lap, but Antoine Cameau, he knows he's got a much faster JMF Racing, Conquest Racing car than the 7th position which he is right now.
This good battle going, and we talk about a 3-hour event. That changes everything, Jeremy, as far as the strategy goes, and you kind of wonder, with these cars being able to run somewhere between 50 minutes and an hour, if you can get an hour in on both stints, you can do it in just 2 stops. The question is, especially for a driver like Maurice Krantz out in front right now, is he in fuel save mode already, seeing if he can extend this first stint for an hour and then throw in the championship complexion, go literally to the other end of the grid, the 54, Josh Sarget behind the wheel right now, sharing that car with Dakota Dickerson. We said only 10 points separated them coming into the weekend, and there's Sarget. He's only picked up 2 positions on the start. He's got to be smart, Jeremy. He's got 3 hours and a teammate to hand this car to. They've got time to get to the front. He needs to steadily move forward. But I wonder what kind of fuel strategy they are on, because I thought Sarget may have charged a little bit harder. Are they saving fuel early on?
Well, yeah, it's a good question, because I would have thought he doesn't want to get held up too much behind these cars that should be significantly slower than he in that number 54 for MLT Motorsports, because the car's been fast every race this season, and for him to maybe now making some progress up through the order, here he comes and makes a pass for position there, and gradually now beginning to work his way forward. But you certainly won't want to lose too much time to the race leaders. Maurice Krantz, fastest car, by only a 1/10 of a second. He turned at a 1:44.1 last time around. Dan Goldberg only a 1/10 of a second slower than him. But most of the cars in the field were in the 47s. And Josh Sarget is behind most of them, so he's got to work his way past and get back onto the pace of the leaders. Coming up now to challenge, that's Mark Sharon in car number 3, that he's challenging at the top of the road.
I can't help but wonder, Jeremy, too, we talked about the downforce levels that you run here and the downforce levels that the different cars carry, and if you're the 54 car, did you go with the strategy of let's run a little more downforce because we know we're going to have to work our way through traffic, and we know we're going to have to make moves like this, like Josh Sarget is trying to make around Sharon right now? Or do you look at it and say, we got to take the downforce out? We can stick with these guys based upon our drivers' talents, but down the straightaway, we got to free this thing up and let it go because we've got to move forward. And a problem for the 47, little lock up there. 60 off as well. No harm, no foul. Back underway, but I think on the down change, probably locked up the rear tires, and for John Brownson, a moment there in the 47 heading into turn 1.
Yeah, it's Mr. Excitement there, John Brownson, and he's trying to make a move there. Whoops, and he just locks it up on the braking. Just looks like the rear brakes just locked up on that number 47 car. Round he went, and Bruce Hamilton there did a really good job to avoid making contact with that spinning car number 47. John Brownson yesterday in qualifying had an off at turn 10 and damaged the rear wing on that car, so they didn't set a representative lap time either. He'll be sharing that car number 47 with a very talented youngster, Dario Cangialosi, who is a student at Florida State University, and he's going to have a lot of work to do once he gets into that car later on today.
Wow, that was impressive. Antoine Comeau finally gets past Danis. And what a move that was, Jeremy, at the end of the back straightaway, 165 miles an hour or so, and just total commitment on Comeau's part to get that done in the braking zone.
Yeah, well, he knew he needed to, because the other guys were kind of getting away from him there, so he needs to get a move on here and not lose too much ground. There's another spin. That's number 7. That's Alan Brynjolfsson out of the 4th position. He had been closing just a little bit on, actually no, he hadn't. He'd been losing a little bit of ground to Keith Grant, and he's now going to lose a lot more ground. He's stuck in the grass. He's got that car going again. That's the good news. Let's see if we can see what happened. Just locks up the brakes again. Same sort of thing. The rear brakes locked up, and the back end comes around, unable to catch it, and he slides off the road. He was pretty much on his own there, though. He wasn't under serious threat from the car behind him, which would have been Jason Rabe in the number 74 for 47 Motorsports.
Yeah, it was interesting. You saw a little smoke off the right rear of Brynjolfsson on the way in there, and I just wonder, this racetrack being as green as it is right now, Jeremy, that these drivers struggling with brake bias a little bit. As the track begins to develop more and more grip, you'll be able to go to more front bias, because those front tires are going to have better grip in the braking zone. But right now, perhaps drivers struggling a little bit. We've seen it with John Brownson, now Alan Brynjolfsson. Brynjolfsson, very talented driver. He and Trent Hinman won the 2nd race of the season at Sebring. But, I also have to wonder, you talk about drivers driving in multiple classes, like we were talking about Colin Mullen a little while ago. Alan Brynjolfsson racing as well in Michelin Pilot Challenge, stepping from an Aston Martin into a prototype and back and forth. That has to be difficult on the weekend, even for drivers like Brynjolfsson's teammate, Trent Hinman, who's a very experienced race car driver. But for guys who don't make their living doing it, it's got to be a challenge. Different types of machinery, GTs to prototypes. Brynjolfsson has certainly made that move, and the move being made now is Antoine Comeau in the 34, working his way forward now on the back of the 74. Jason Rabe, how long is he going to sit there before he pounces?
Yeah, that's a good point. And he's made up very, very quickly that ground to the car that had been ahead of him there, Antoine Comeau, with Jason Rabe very, very quickly now, having got past Brian Themis. And just back to Trent Hinman driving those 3 different cars. Chatting to him yesterday, and he said, what does an Aston Martin GT4 car, a Ligier P3 car, and a Porsche 911 have in common? He says nothing but the idiot behind the wheel. But he's not an idiot behind the wheel. He's extremely talented. And Alan Brynjolfsson is his teammate both in this series and in the Michelin Pilot Challenge Series, in which he will share that Aston Martin later on today. And Alan Brynjolfsson, he's a very successful businessman from Florida, originally from Iceland actually, but Florida is where his home is. Volt Lighting is his business, and as you can see, that very brightly coloured Volt Archangel car number 7, who's coming under increasing pressure now from Antoine Comeau, the Canadian E car number 34.
Duquesne chassis here at the hands of both Comeau and Rabe in front, the 74 and the 34 in that order. Rabe on the curb there, Comeau with a little smoother exit through Hogpen. Is he going to get a run down the straight? These cars with such aero on them create a lot of dirty air behind, and Rabe with a little bit of a block to the right, and that really checked Comeau up, and I don't know that he's going to be able to get it done. Down into 1, heavy on the brakes. He was a demon at the end of the back straightaway a couple of laps ago, does it again in turn 1, takes the position, sets his sight forward. I think they've got a much better race car underneath them there at Conquest Racing than they did a qualifying car, Jeremy.
Well, yeah, as I said earlier on, there were problems in qualifying. They just didn't get the lap in that they knew was in that car. They knew the car was faster than that with a red flag and then a penalty in qualifying as well. It's only 15 minutes of qualifying, so there's not much time. If there's a red flag and you've got to serve a drive-through penalty, that cuts into your margins quite considerably. So he knew the car was faster than that, but now he's showing it. and up now into the 4th position for Antoine Comeau, and he is making hay here and pulling away. Last time around he lost a little bit of ground to the leader, but I think now in clean air we'll see what sort of lap times that Antoine Comeau can turn compared to our race leader Moritz Kranz, who's still out in front, has set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:43.1 so far in the early stages, and I'm surprised I'm not going quicker than that actually. The lap record here was set last year by Kyle Kirkwood, who's a very, very talented driver. That was in the older generation of car. They were 1:41.7, nowhere near that yet, but certainly when the second drivers get behind the wheel of these cars after either the first or the second round of pit stops, I think we'll see some changes there.
It's going to be interesting. We talk about a 3-hour race, 50 minutes to an hour on fuel, depending on who the driver is, the pace that they're running. And right now for Maurice Krantz in the blue and white 21, as he heads into turn 4, have they gone to a fuel strategy mode? He's got a 6.3 second lead over Daniel Goldberg in the number 6 in second place. And right now, Krantz can really back off that throttle, save fuel, and perhaps do this race in only 2 stops. We'll have to wait and see. The other big mover in addition to Antoine Comeau in the 34 is Josh Sargent. We talked about this taking a couple of laps to get up to speed, it seemed, Jeremy, but Sargent now working his way to the front aggressively, now up to 8th from his 15th starting position. So he's moving in the right direction, and I think for a driver like Josh Sargent, he needs to understand his role, doesn't he, Jeremy? He's the second driver. He knows he's got Dakota Dickerson to finish. His job is to take the car as far forward as he can and have it as clean as he can when he hands it over to Dakota Dickerson. You've got to bet that we're going to end up with a full course caution or 2 in this race at some point in time. So outright speed right now is not so much what Sargent needs. He just needs to keep moving forward and give Dakota Dickerson a good car to run to the end with.
He does, but he's already 37 seconds behind the race leader. And that's going to be an awful lot of time to make up, even if it is a 3-hour race. So he really needs to get a move on here. He's got past that traffic. He's now got nearly 10 seconds to catch up with Ari Balog, who's next ahead of him in that Airbnb car, the kind of a 33 run by Julia 3 Motorsports out of Charlotte, North Carolina. But now he's really got to put his head down because he's lost a lot of time in his early stages, and he's really going to need, I think, a full course caution to get back on terms with the front runners, unless he can really put his head down and turn some very, very quick laps from here on in. New fastest race lap there for the race leader, that is Moritz Kranz, into the 42s now, 42.65. And to your point, Brian, yes, I think they are being pretty conservative in its early stages of the race, because the fuel, they have 100 litres of fuel on board these cars, and the fuel range is generally a little bit less than an hour, somewhere between 52 and 57 minutes. Maybe you can stretch it to an hour. To get any more than that, you've really got to go into fuel save mode, lifting off the throttle well before the end of the straightaways, and some other techniques you can do as well, just coasting into the corners to try and stretch the stint to make it longer, and then we'll hopefully turn it into a 2-stop race rather than needing 3 pit stops to get at the end of this 3-hour race.
I'm interested to see, Jeremy, what Josh Sargent's lap times are now that he's worked through traffic. He's going to have a couple of clean laps. Remember, for Maurice Krantz, he's had no traffic to deal with at all, so he's got a clean racetrack that he can run on. Sargent's had to work his way through traffic. All of his lap times are going to be a little bit slower because of that traffic. Now that he's got some clean laps ahead and a pretty good gap to the next cars up the line, this is, I agree with you, this is where he needs to lay the gauntlet down and get some lap times. He can't continue to lose a 1.5 seconds or 2 seconds a lap to the leader, the 21. Sargent's got to get with the program now that he's cleared traffic and make hay when he has these clean laps ahead of him. And that's the difficulty here. You've got to be aggressive when you've got the opportunity, and you've got to be smart and make sure that you give something to your teammate after the stint is over. So there's a little give and take going on for Sargent. This was a clean lap down into the 42s this time, just a 10th off the last lap for Maurice Krantz. So seems like Sargent can answer back when he's got the clean laps in front of him. But you're right, he has lost a considerable amount of time to the leaders trying to work his way up to the point where he is right now, which is 8th.
Yeah, and each of his last 2 laps have been far and away his quickest, as you say. It was at 43.2 last time around, a 42.9 this time around. Moritz Kranz a 42.8. Everybody else is in the 43s. So yeah, he was the second quickest car on track this time around for Josh Sarchet. And you know, in the early stages there, he was certainly being cautious. I think probably a little bit too cautious. But yeah, the important thing is to get this car to the end of the race. And of course, yesterday in qualifying, first lap of qualifying, drive shaft failure. I mean, bad luck in one way you can look at it, but extremely good luck in another way, because if it hadn't happened in qualifying, more than likely it would have happened early in the race. So that was, you know, they were able to change those drive shafts, get that car into good shape for this race. And now Josh Sarchet is putting his head down, as we suggested, and trying to close the gap towards the leaders. He's currently running in the 8th position though, and still, you know, well over half a minute to 40 seconds or more behind the race leader, which continues to be Moritz Kranz from Mueller Motorsports North America.
Kranz has been sensational this year, and that's somewhat of an understatement. We said at the beginning of the show, 5 poles in 5 races, always impressive, both in race configuration and certainly in qualifying configuration. That is borne out by the fact of a pole position in every one of the races. But it's interesting, he's not had the same teammate twice this year, I don't believe. Ran Mid-Ohio by himself without a teammate, Jeremy. And this weekend, the 18-year-old Belgian Hugo de Wilde with him in the 21. And so you've got to figure that they're planning on putting Wilde in the middle of the race and then having Kranz finish. Is that what you would think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you know, Hugo is a very talented youngster. He's been done a lot of driving in open wheel cars and in sports cars. Even though he is only 18 years of age, so you know he's certainly capable of holding his own. But Moritz, he's done most of the other races on his own this season, and done very well indeed. It's really only the fact it's a 3-hour race. I think that he's kind of compelled. Well, he is compelled to have a co-driver with him for this duration.
Interesting, Wilde, with some experience in LMP3-based machinery in Europe this year. 3 races, 1 win. So as you said, certainly a talented young man. But I got to believe that that's going to be a middle stint, which is completely different than the strategy with the 54. And that is having Sarchet start and then Dakota Dickerson in at the end. I would expect to see Sarchet out on the first stop 50 minutes to an hour into this race, and Dakota Dickerson take it the remaining 2 hours plus.
Yeah, it's in the second practice session yesterday morning, which was in the wet. A lot of the drivers didn't even go out in the cars, including Hugo. I think they probably did a test here prior to the event, so he's got some laps in the car. But this weekend, officially, Hugo's only got 10 laps total in this car, and a track like VAR for your first time racing here, that's not very many. But you know, he is a talented youngster. I'm sure he's got himself up to speed. So we don't really know, or we haven't seen what pace he has. But I would imagine he wouldn't be in this car if he wasn't quick enough to hold his own. So,
no, but it's interesting, Jeremy. You come to a race with a championship lead by only 10 points, and as we said, in last year's point system, that would have been a 1-point lead. So it is just razor thin as Sarchet trying to move forward now with the 33 of Ari Balo just in front of him. They head through Oak Tree. So you've got this razor thin championship points lead as you come in here. I mean, my belief is you either start the new driver or you put him in the middle. You let your known commodity finish, because here's the thing. Wilde doesn't know any of these other drivers. He doesn't know how they race. He doesn't know their tendencies. He doesn't know their strengths, their weaknesses. He doesn't know this racetrack. To put him at the end with the weight of the championship and the race win on his shoulders is a tall order in my book.
I completely agree with you. Completely agree with you. It is. And watching here, Josh Sarchet is caught up now to Ari Balo getting that orange and green car for Junior 3 Motorsports. Ari an executive, or was an executive at Airbnb. He is an executive at Airbnb, and he's closed right up. He's closed that gap of it was actually I think 9 seconds when he first got past the number 43 car, and in 4 laps he's reduced that to just a car length. So he's about to pounce, I believe, as Josh Sargent moved himself up into the 7th position, but still now 40 seconds behind the race leader, who's turning incredibly consistent laps at the front of the field. Moritz Kranz, his last few laps are 42.85, 0.86, 0.84, 0.85, 0.82. We're all within a 1/10 of a second at the front of the field. That's pretty remarkable. It certainly isn't as fast as these cars can go in the practice sessions. We've seen cars down in the 40s, so I think you're right. I think he's saving fuel but still pulling away from the field at the front. And now slight mistake there from Ari Balog. He's going to have to defend that position heading up towards turn 14.
This is what traffic does to you. Josh Sargent, just a lap or two ago, 42.9. The last lap behind Belo, 44.2. So he's really getting held up, which we said he can't afford to do. I think he's being extra cautious as he tries to work by these guys. Certainly not the aggressive driving style that we see from Antoine Camot, I should say, in the 34, how aggressive he's been in the brake zone. Sargent's not showing that aggressiveness, and it's costing him time on the racetrack right now.
Yeah, but that was a nice move there to get himself up one more position as they complete lap 14. And it's the fifth place car is Jason Rabe. That's the second of the 47 Motorsports entries. Another Duquesne chassis. We've got Duquesne in the lead. The Ligier Dan Goldberg in second place. Then we've got Duquesne's in 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Number 40 car of Keith Grant. Antoine Camot in car number 34, and Jason Rabe in car number 74.
And just like that, Moritz Kranz starting to put cars down a lap. Danny Koch already, Bruce Hamilton. Now the 15 of Watt goes down a lap. And I think that's one of the things we've seen all year long is when you watch this blue 21 diving down through roller coaster, through hog pen, onto the front straightaway. What we've seen at every racetrack, Jeremy, it's a slot car. The car doesn't move around a lot. Kranz's driving style, perhaps because of all the different machinery he drives, both GT and prototype based, he has this ultra smooth style. You don't see the car slide. It's on rails, and it almost looks easy. But the lap times are so impressive, and that's why I said at the beginning of the show, sometimes a lot of guys watch this and they look at the timesheets and kind of scratch their head and go, that's a highly polished bronze, shall we say.
Yeah, indeed. And yeah, driver ratings, well, they've always been a bone of contention, haven't they? But certainly, you know, for a 34-year-old, it's not as if he's a, yeah, most bronze drivers are up in age, let's say.
I was going to say, to you and me, he's a child, Jeremy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you're quite. Don't go there. To be 34 and having this sort of speed with as much experience he has and still be a bronze, he either knows somebody or he's been very, very fortunate in flying under the radar screen. Other people make decisions on driver ratings. But the point is, he's doing a super job out front, and he leads now by over 11 seconds. That gap has stabilised between himself and Dan Goldberg in second place. That Motel 6 car for the Performance Tech Motorsports team. And then back to Keith Grant in third place, who's just set the fastest lap of the race, a 42.623 for car number 40 in third place, as we see Josh Sargent moving his way past the P32 car of Danny Koch, car number 61.
Round 5 of 6 of the 2021 IMSA Prototype Challenge Series underway from VIR. Brian Till, Jeremy Shaw with you, and Moritz Kranz out in front in the 21 from Mueller Motorsports America. What an impressive job he's done. 5 poles in 5 races, and now leading here. Dan Goldberg, a great run, but being hunted down in second place by the number 40 of Keith Grant. And good battles around the racetrack as the number 7 of Alan Brynjolfsson, that bright yellow number 7, trying to get past Joe Robillard. Brynjolfsson with a problem early on, the braking zone for turn 1, which caught a couple of other drivers out with brake bias. Brynjolfsson went around and back in the order and now working his way back towards the front.
Yeah, and Moritz Kranz clearly got the message about Keith Grant said in the fastest lap, because he's just responded with a 2.513 for our race leader. There is that Alan Brynjolfsson car, kind of a 7, that brightly liveried car. He's caught up now with Joe Robillard. This is the battle for 9th and 10th places. And you said, as a result of that spin, Alan Brynjolfsson, who qualified in the 4th position back in 10th, now caught up with Joe Robillard and will try and make a pass.
Down into turn 1, Brynjolfsson in that bright yellow Volt entry looks to the inside. Robillard is one of the coolest gentlemen out there, is not going to make it easy for Brynjolfsson at all. And Alan finally gets it done on the high side heading into turn 3. And he'll see if he can put his head down and pull away. Joe Robillard sharing that car with Stephen McAleer, another young driver who drives just about everything in the paddock and will race later today in Michelin Pilot Challenge here at VIR. Then you move back forward as the 40, that bright yellow of Keith Grant, around the 15. That's the lap car of Watt. And Grant trying to close in on Dan Goldberg in the blue and red number 6, the Motel 6 entry. You can see they've both gotten past the lap traffic. Clear sailing now for Keith Grant. You mentioned it just a minute ago. Turned in the fastest lap, but the fast lap seems to change almost every lap. Jeremy Krantz now has it. Second quick lap, Dan Goldberg. He just took that away from Camo, who was there in 3rd, and it's just going back and forth. I think the racetrack's getting better and better as the rubber gets laid down with all the rain we've had. Very green racetrack to start today.
Yeah, I think plus now we're halfway through this opening season. Half an hour has elapsed, so I think the teams will be keeping an eye on how much fuel is being consumed by these cars, and now they feel they can push a little bit harder, I think, than they were at the opening stages. But certainly for Moritz Kranz, he's been able to kind of cruise around there at a very I think for him, comfortable pace, and save some fuel to go longer on this first stint before he needs to make his first pit stop. And just a really, really fine performance for that H&R team and the number 21 car of Moritz Kranz, doing a textbook drive here in the early stages of this race. But let's not forget, there's still 2.5 hours remaining, so a long, long way to go. And he's still got to maintain his concentration and his speed.
Moritz Kranz leads here at VIR in his Duquesne chassis from Mueller Motorsports America down into turn 1, and really has the best of both worlds going. Jeremy, you mentioned it a little while ago. He's got a lead which allows him to save fuel, and that could allow them to do this on just 2 stops. This racetrack, while it is thirsty because you're at full throttle for a lot of the time down the back straightaway, once you crest the rise there towards turn 14, you can use that elevation to help you do that long coast into the braking zone for 14, and then the run down through the roller coaster, you can certainly save fuel. But as you begin this climb that Dan Goldberg in the red and blue number 6 is about to do with Keith Grant on his tail, up through the climbing S's, this is flat out in one of these prototype challenge machines, and it is seriously quick. It's 145 miles per hour thereabouts at the apex of the left-hander up here at the top of the climbing S's. Through this section right here, 145 miles an hour flat out before jumping on the brakes for turn 11 and turn 12 there at Oak Tree, and then down the back straightaway close to 165, depending on how you've got the car loaded with downforce or trimmed out for speed, anywhere between 163 and 167 miles an hour as you get to the end of the back straightaway. This little rise, Jeremy, is when you come over it, you can begin to start saving fuel, that downhill run into the brake zone of 14.
Yeah, that's right. Lift off early there, and if you're in that part of the racetrack, you can hear that the drivers are just kind of coasting there. There's no full throttle sound from that 5.6 litre engine that these cars all use. Great engine it is. Well, dare I say it, super reliable, relatively inexpensive for a racing engine, lots of horsepower as well, and it sounds great, doesn't it?
traction control. Not super advanced traction control on these cars, but you need a little bit of it. Former iterations didn't have it, as you see Keith Grant down in turn 2 with a big slide. We were talking about the 21 car being on rails earlier. Keith Grant has taken the slot car analogy to that one that slides around, because the rear of that 40 hanging out there, and that's a problem if you do that too much, Jeremy. You can begin to wear the rear tires, and the car is going to be a handful, as Grant now up through the climbing S's, like we were talking, flat out grabbing gears on the way up there. But he and his brother have had a great run this year. They've showed all kinds of speed. You look at their finishes, they finished 3rd, 8th, 4th, and 13th. Not a good run at Watkins Glen, but the worst they've qualified is 5th. That was once. Every other time they've qualified inside the top 3 and actually on the front row twice. They've shown great speed. They just haven't had the finishes that they wanted, but finishes is where the points pay out. And another problem for Alan Brynjolfsson.
Oops.
There's the problem there. You get those slick Michelin tires off in the wet grass, hard to find traction. And he's fortunate, because to me, I didn't think you could leave the racetrack today without getting to a tire wall. And there's a problem there onto the front straightaway. The 47 was involved, but there was a white and blue. Was that the leader? It was. Maurice Krantz, the leader, a problem trying to get past the 47 car of John Brownson. I think Krantz was around.
He was he? Yeah, 154 won that last lap. So a spin. Let's see what happened. Can we see what happened?
Looking back from turn 1, that's Brynjolfsson going off.
Yeah.
And about the same time Brynjolfsson went off, here's Krantz trying to get by Brownson coming down through the roller coaster. Doesn't see him. That's a big hit side to side, but I also saw, looked like maybe part of the front splitter of one of the cars come off. The 47 of Brownson ends up in the wall at the outside of the corner. Krantz back underway, but you've got to wonder about that car. That is a rare mistake, and I'll call it a mistake for Krantz right now, but we don't see hiccups very often for him, and I think he just felt like Brownson saw him. But man, with a lead like the one that he had, did you really need to do that there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult place to pass. I mean, it's full commitment coming down the hill there toward Hogpen, and you've got to be absolutely sure that the guy that you're trying to pass knows what you're trying to do there. Poor old John Brownson, he's got that car spinning around on the wet grass. He's got some traction. Is he going to get back up the hill again? Oh man, it's so treacherous down there on that slick grass. He's just got to try and point it downhill.
Yeah, downhill. Turn left. Turn left
would be the key there, John, and just try and get a little bit of. You know, he's from Colorado. He knows all about slippery surfaces.
There you go. And now there's the rear entry. But that's a scary place to do it. But yeah, well done. Like you were saying, Jeremy, you want a little bit of that downhill to help you get going. That avoided a full course caution. But for Maurice Krantz, his lead now down to 4 seconds. And what kind of Duquesne chassis does he have underneath him? I saw him weaving the car from side to side down the straightaway, trying to get an idea. Is everything where it needs to be? Is everything in the right place? Is the steering wheel straight? Is the alignment off a little bit? What kind of car do I have to work with? Are my Michelins up to pressure? Did I cut a tire down? Like I said, a move that I'm not sure that if he could do it over again, he wouldn't do it differently.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. And as a result of those cars spinning around down there, everybody was slower on that last lap. But you're getting right back up to speed again. Maurice Krantz actually extended his lead over Dan Gerber by almost 2 seconds on the next lap, so to speak, on the lap after his spin, despite the fact he went across the line at significantly slower speed, having resumed from going off at the final corner. But he's back up to speed again, and Dan Goldberg now he's got his mirrors pretty much full with Keith Grant from Tennessee, hot on his tail, hot on the tail of the Floridian Dan Goldberg in that Motel 6 car.
40 minutes into the only endurance race Prototype Challenge will run in 2021, 3 hours from here at Virginia International Raceway, and drama for the leader. Maurice Krantz caught up with John Brownson as he was trying to lap him down through the roller coaster section of the racetrack. has turned Krantz around, lost the huge lead that he had, and now trying to extend that back over Dan Goldberg. But that was a problem that Krantz probably did not need to have. And it's easy for us, Jeremy, to sit here and judge because we're not behind the wheel of that car as you're coming down through the S's and you're making split-second decisions. And for Krantz, like I said, I'm sure it's one that he would like to have back, especially if there's damage done to the car. But with a 42.87 the last time by, I would say either he is seriously upset with himself and pressing hard to make amends, or the 21 Duquesne chassis from Mueller Motorsports America underneath him is quite sound indeed. As the 54, Josh Sargent, second in the championship, trying to move his way forward, trying to get around the 17 of Tinas right now.
Yeah, just get past Brian Tinas there at turn one. It's a bit of a battle, though. He should have been a bit more aggressive there, I think, Josh Sargent, really assert himself, dive down the inside, so there's no way Brian Tinas can turn in to that corner, but he does make the pass, so he is up now in sixth position, but the gap back to the race leader is still over 40 seconds, despite the fact that Moritz Krantz lost about 10 seconds with that spin just a few laps ago. So Josh Sargent now is up into sixth, excuse me, but he's still got a long way to go to catch up to the front of the field. But as you say, Moritz Krantz, having made that mistake, right back on the same sort of pace that he was running before that spin at turn 17.
It's amazing what kind of fire gets lit underneath you from time to time as a problem for the 74 off Jason Rabe, nosed into the tire wall. The car looks to be okay. Rabe, just a little lockup, I'm going to assume, on the brakes here. Let's see. Just slides wide. That's up at 11 and 12. We see this quite often. The left rear gets dropped as you're trying to let the car track out and get ready for turn 12. And when it drops, especially as wet as it is to the outside today, that tire hits that slick dirt and grass, and around you go.
Yes. So he's going to have trouble getting out of there. Again, that's wet. He's not even on the grass. He's on the dirt, and getting some wheel spin. I think this might need a full course caution. 42 minutes down in this race. Most of the teams, I think, we're hoping for some sort of caution period during this race to give the kind of the fuel consumption or the stint length, because of how much fuel they use, a little bit more leeway. And I think we're probably going to have to go full course caution here. Yes, we are.
Well, I think about that. It is a 40-minute minimum drive time. That would be sufficed at this point in time. But the full course caution is going to help you save fuel and extend this first stint. So right now, the strategist on the box trying to decide what they want to do. And for Josh Sargent, think about this. I'm sure they were counting on the full course caution. You talked about it, Jeremy. Some 42 seconds behind the leader was Sargent. Sargent, his teammate Dakota Dickerson, second in the championship. They sit fifth on the racetrack, and that 42-second lead that Maurice Krantz had is now gone. The yellow helps bring that back together, and I'm sure that's what they said to Josh at the beginning. Look, focus. Don't be too aggressive. Don't throw our championship away, but we got to get you to move forward. For Sargent, that's like telling a driver to save fuel but go fast. I mean, they want him to be aggressive but not too aggressive. I had to laugh. You and I were talking about the, quote, mistake that we felt Krantz made down through the roller coaster, and then in the very next breath, we were talking about Josh Sargent needing to be more aggressive. Again, it's easy for us to sit here and watch. I know, just like the fans at the racetrack, standing in the different corners, you sit and you watch the races and you question and you say, why didn't you do this and why didn't you do that? So easy for us to do the same thing. But for these race car drivers, think about that. At 165, 170 miles an hour at the end of the back straightaway, the decision time that you've got to make a call, are you going to do this or are you going to not do this? It's like a Major League Baseball player. For a Major League Baseball player standing at the plate with a 95, 100-mile-an-hour fastball coming at him, they've got a little under half a second to see the pitch, decide that they want to swing, and swing the bat. all in less than half a second. That's what these race car drivers are doing. In less than half a second, in tenths of a second, they're making a decision as to whether they can or they can't, and then they have to apply that decision all in fractions of a second.
It's a fine line, as you well know, Brian, having raced at the top levels of this sport. It's very difficult to strike that balance between being conservative and pushing too hard. You're trying to extend your fuel stint, you're trying to save fuel, you're trying to push hard, you're trying not to lose too much time. There's a lot going through your mind. Plus, it's a really tricky racetrack as well, and particularly up there at the kind of the top of the hill in turn 11 and 12. It's a double apex right-hander with a tightening second part of it. It's a really tricky track, and if you get off the road there just a little bit with your left-hand side wheels, as he did right there, Jason Rabe did, it's very easy to lose control, which is what he did, unfortunately. But this full course caution is good news for a whole number of people. Bad news, of course, for Moritz Kranz, whose race lead has been erased.
Well, you had to feel like this was coming, that there would be a full course caution at some point in time, and I'm willing to wager that it's not the last one that we're going to see today. And so you try to kind of work your strategy around that, and the strategists sitting on the box have historicals. They have those on their computer. They know that historically, when Prototype Challenge has run at VIR in an hour and 45-minute race, there are X number of mini yellows, and they look at that, and if it's 1.2 in an hour and 45-minute race, they extrapolate that data out and say, well, we believe there will be 2. Their programs even go down to when the yellows typically happen at a racetrack, and that's the thing that I find fascinating. You'll talk to these guys, and they'll say, yeah, in a 6-hour race, we typically have 3 full course cautions, and they happen in the latter half of the race, so that's what we're betting on. Or in a 2-hour race, it happens there, and that's the kind of information that they use to make their decisions. Pit lane is open and a lot of takers, and this is interesting, the leader is in. Driver change.
So Hugo de Wilde hopping aboard that number 21 car from Brussels in Belgium, just 16 years of age. He started off his career in Formula 4, finished third in the Southeast Asia Championship in 2017/18, raced in a very competitive French Formula 4 Championship in 2018, finished second in that against some very, very talented drivers. Since then, he's done a whole bunch of things. He did some Formula Regional Euro Cup the last couple of years, and as you said earlier on, Brian Till, some prototype racing as well. So getting a lot of experience for one so young.
And there is damage to the 21. If you look below the left headlight, just in front of the left wheel, the outside of the front splitter is gone. On the right side, you'll see a definitive extension with a little cup there just underneath it. That helps add downforce to the left side of the car. The other thing that little cup on the outside does on either side, which is now missing on the left side, not only does it help add downforce, but it helps direct air down the side of the car, which adds downforce in different ways other than just the front end. It helps direct air through radiators, through wheel ducts, all which help both with cooling and downforce. So that section being missing will affect the car. Will it do it to a great degree? I don't know. I've not piloted one of those, but it's on there for a reason. And now it's not on the left front of the 21.
Yeah, probably as a result of digging through the grass there when he spun that car, I'm sure, or maybe the initial contact.
So the contact was on the right side, but watch when the cars come through the grass, Jeremy. There's the hit, and there's the piece. You can see it fly off as he slides down left side first. That's kind of a ditch there, a little swale, and that left front of the splitter dug in, and it took that piece completely off.
It did. And there's John Brownson there, Mr. Excitement he's known as, and he's showing again. That was really unfortunate though. I mean, it's not the sort of place you expect the leader really to make a pass. At that point of the race, the leader's just got to be patient and follow you through there. If you're not completely alongside, which he clearly wasn't at that point in the race, the leader was not completely alongside the slower car. So you have to give respect to that driver, even if he's not running at the same pace as you. He's got to make that corner as well, and he wasn't really able to because there was the contact between them. But so we've just seen wholesale pit stops there. The only car on the lead lap that did not make a pit stop was caliber 33. That's Ari Balog, who was running in the 7th position. He then now, therefore, will lead the race in caliber 33. He'll be sharing that car with Garrett Grist, 26-year-old Canadian who is super fast.
I was going to say.
And what's interesting about this fact is the caution came just about 45 minutes into the race, and so from here to the end, I think everybody's going to have to make 2 more pit stops. But if he can stay out there now, it'll be potentially 1 fewer stop than everybody else. And right now he has a track position. So, interesting strategy there by that Junior 3 motorsports team to keep Ari out on track when everybody else elected to come onto the pit lane.
Yeah, a bit of a gamble there for sure. And go back to that incident with Cranston. You were talking about something as the lead was extending, and you were talking about concentration. And I wonder, I think back to, now it was a long time ago. Okay, it was a really long time ago, but I think back to when I was driving, and I can remember at Lime Rock Park, and I'll give you the year to show you how long ago. It was in 1990. It was in the Toyota Atlantic Championship, and I had a huge lead. It was the first year the chicane was at the uphill, and it was a legitimate chicane just past the apex of the uphill. It's not where the extension is now at Lime Rock Park. And I was about to win. In my mind, I had already given myself the victory going down the back straightaway towards that chicane, and I was counting points and prize money in my head. That's how much concentration I had lost because of that lead, and I turned in for the uphill and completely forgot the chicane was there because my mind was somewhere else, and I spun out of the lead, and consequently I didn't need to count points and prize money because I did not win that race. But it's like you were talking about, Jeremy, your concentration when you get that big lead, it's hard to maintain it. You know, it's hard to maintain that focus, and those little mistakes like the one I made, like the one that I believe Maurice Krantz made in trying to go around John Brownson there with that big lead, it's easy to make those mistakes. It's hard to stay focused when something inside of you is allowing your brain to kind of wander because you don't feel like you need to stay focused anymore.
And you're a pilot. I got my pilot license many years ago. One of the things the instructor, my flight instructor, told me was if you make one mistake, don't make another.
No.
And that's exactly what is the case here for Moritz Krantz. He made one mistake, but he hasn't made any others, and that car is still effectively in control of this race. It's in second position right now with Ugo de Wilde at the controls, but that was that one little blemish aside, it was an excellent first stint for our championship leader.
Well, I think the thing that's interesting is when you look back in the fifth place on the racetrack, the 54, Josh Sargent out of the 54, Dakota Dickerson is in, the 34 just behind, Camo out, Colin Mullen in, and so David Grant is now in for Keith in the 40, Rasmus Lind in the 6. All of these drivers have experience on this racetrack, and so now you've got Dakota Dickerson second in the championship thinking, this is when I need to make hay. 3 cars in front of me is the championship leader. 10 points they had in hand coming in here. I need to get this done because when they do their next pit stop 40 minutes from now, you can be assured Maurice Krantz is getting back in. If I'm going to get it done and get in front of the 21, it needs to be now. Green flag waves, restart underway. Ari Balo leads the field in the 33 to the flag, and keep your eyes back a little further in the field. Look for Dakota Dickerson in the 54 to be charging to the front, trying to get temperature, pressures, but he's got pressure from the 34. Colin Mullen looks to the inside of Dakota Dickerson as they head through 3 into 4. Dickerson dives to the inside. Certainly a different aggressive level than what we saw from Josh Sargent, who was behind the wheel of the 54 early on.
Wow, yeah, that's exactly right. And Colin Mullen, the youngster there, Yet another youngster, just 19 years of age. He's also from Danville, but not the Danville just down the road from here in Virginia. He's from Danville, California, a suburb of San Francisco, and in the Bay Area. And he's going to be charging hard now. He's fast. He's super confident. As you said, he's had a couple of wins in a GT4 Mercedes for effectively the same team, Conquest Racing West, last time out. Very impressive wins as well. So he's going to be charging hard here. But out in the lead, we see a change. Ari Balog has already, I think, capitulated. So it's Ugo de Wilde who leads now for Rasmus Linde, another very talented Scandinavian. In fact, is Rasmus from Gothenburg in Sweden, a very accomplished open-wheel driver as well. He made his Indy Lights debut last month with Yulkos Racing, and he is now back in a prototype car. He's driving this car all season long with Dan Goldberg, and he wants a win.
Piece of debris either from the racetrack or from one of the cars as they came down the back straightaway that time, and it went flying into the air. I believe it was off the number 6. This is down the straightaway. Look, this second car in line, the number 6, it's a shock cover, and off it goes. It is now gone. That's the shock cover on the number 6 of Rasmus Linde. It's gone. It shouldn't create too much drag, but it will create a little low pressure area, which will have some drag with it, and he won't have the straight line speed that he was hoping to have. Meanwhile, the first two have checked out. Balo has dropped to third, Grant in the 40 just behind, and then Dickerson, Dakota Dickerson, right behind him, the 34, Colin Mullen, and Stephen McAleer trying to hold on to the rear wing of Colin Mullen in the 43 just behind.
Yeah, and that was it. You've got his attention, Rasmus Linde. Assuming he wasn't blinking at the time, because
I would assume that would have started as kind of a vibration, Jeremy, as it began to flutter. He may have felt that and thought, what is going on? But it cleared itself pretty quickly.
It did, didn't it? And number 61 car of Danny Coke and George Stakos is not resumed after its pit stop. It came in along with everybody else, but that car is already tied up the LMP3-2 championship for this season. Unfortunately, there won't be many takers in that class this season. They've already tied up that title, but I'm sure they're disappointed not to be out in the race at the moment. But what a race it is developing into now. We've got two leaders who've stretched out a little bit over the rest of the field. Now, Ari Balog doing a super job there to hold on in third position ahead of Keith Grant, Dakota Dickerson, Colin Mullen, Stephen McAleer, Trent Hinman, all in his wheel tracks as well. The only one of those leading cars that did not change driver is Brian Thenis in car number 17, who's also hanging on there very, very well indeed. And the number 3 car is also on the lead lap in the 10th position. Whoops.
I was going to say that's frustrating. Mike Skeen just came out of the pits in contact there. Colin Mullen into the side of David Grant. Skeen in the 3 just leaving the pits, and that kind of bunched things up there in the 3-4 complex, allowed the 54 of Dakota Dickerson to get through. But man, that was tight down there, and you can see the frustration for Dakota Dickerson trying to get through there. So aggressive behind the wheel. He knows this is the opportunity, and right now the 21 and the 6 are getting away. Those two working together, pulling away from the rest of the battle behind. Dakota Dickerson desperate to get past.
He is, isn't he? And that was off-course excursion there for Keith Grant, and come back on there very, very forcefully. He didn't want to lose any more position, did he? But this battle at the front of the field now. Ugo de Wilde holding on ahead of Rasmus Linde. It's a Duquesne against a Ligier again. Got Ligier second and third now, with Ari Balog having yet to make a pit stop, still holding on to that position in third, and holding up that whole train of cars behind him.
Rasmus Linde, Dan Goldberg, 5th in the championship. They are mathematically removed from winning it, but hey, you can certainly finish second or third. You want to finish as far up the order in the championship as you can, and the best way to do that is to win races. Right now, the 54, Dakota Dickerson, trying to get past the 33. I talked about the aggressiveness, the desperation. Dakota Dickerson needs to get to the front. He needs to hunt down the 21, He needs the 6 to do some of the work for him. He's cheering for Rasmus Lindh right now, who's running just behind DeWilde. And Dakota Dickerson all over the back of Ari Balo, and you got to give it to Balo, doing a great job of holding off Dickerson.
He really is, yeah. But Dakota, you got past the number 40 car on that previous lap when Keith Grant was off the road at the exit of turn 3, and now he's closed up, has Dakota Dickerson onto the tail of Ari Balo. But he's very experienced, this Dakota Dickerson. He's won championships in all sorts of different categories, and he knows there's still 2 hours, just under 2 hours remaining in this race. A long way to go. He's not going to get carried away and make a low percentage move. He wants to make sure it's a clean pass on Ari Balo. He knows he's faster than Ari. He's not a professional driver, as is Dakota. So he's just going to bide his time, get a good run out of a corner here, pick one, and make a clean pass. And that's what Dakota will be looking for. He'll be looking to try and get a good run out of Hogpen onto the front straight, and maybe he can drag past on that front straight. But I know the number 33 car, that's one of the cars that's running a little bit less downforce than some of the other contenders. So it is pretty quick on the straight. You can see it's pulled away a little bit on the straight there compared to Dakota Dickerson. They get into the braking area though, and the number 54 closes in again. So that strategy of running the low downforce, that's why it works, because it makes it even more difficult for somebody to overtake you.
It's got to happen in here for Dakota Dickerson. You were thinking the exact same thing that I was. There's the aggressive move, braking zone to 4, Dickerson through. He's got the position, but it's exactly what I was thinking, Jeremy. I was looking at Ari Balo down the straightaway and thinking he's pulling 2, 3, 4 car lengths over Dakota Dickerson. It didn't take long to kind of analyze what downforce settings they were running, because they're both in the Ligier chassis, but Balo certainly has top speed. And that's that decision that you've got to make early on. What are you going to run? You look at, on the Ligier chassis, the dive planes, like the number 6 car, the second in order, the Ligier chassis, dive planes underneath the headlights, pretty well scooped. You see them, and they've got lips on the side. That's a higher downforce setting. If you look back to Ari Balo's number 33, what you would see on that Ligier is the dive planes are almost flat and horizontal. So he's running very little downforce. Those dive planes almost flat. That's what gives him that straight line speed over the other car. See him there just in front of the headlights, how they're just horizontal? That's the low downforce setup. Yeah,
and Dakota Dickerson, again, he'd done his homework there. He knew, as you were suggesting, Brian Till, that the turn 4 was going to give him his best opportunity to make a pass, get a good run out of 3, get alongside him going into 4. He was clearly alongside in the braking area. Move done. A nice aggressive, decisive move from Dakota Dickerson up into 3rd position. He's now going to try and track down leader. Even with that pass, he's just turned his best lap of the race, Dakota Dickerson, in that 3rd place car.
Man, this is a good battle. Stephen McAleer in the 43, Colin Mullen in the 34, and they are going at it hammer and tongs there into turn 1. Little bit of a squeeze by Mullen, McAleer having nothing to do with it, and they were side by side through a couple of corners. 2 very, very talented sports car drivers. I will tell you though, what I was noticing as far as aerodynamic bits and pieces on the cars, maybe good news for Dakota Dickerson, Jeremy, and that is Rasmus Lindh seems to be running a very similar downforce package, at least to the naked eye, that Dakota Dickerson is running, and I don't see DeWilde pulling away all that much down the straightaway in the Duquesne chassis. So perhaps if Dickerson can get there, he'll be able to battle with. Maybe a couple of car links the Duquesne has, but he's not just driving away. I don't think it had the top speed that the 33 of Balo had.
You might be right. That's going to be very, very interesting to see. 74 car off the road again. That's not the first time
he's got
today. It's Jason Rabe again. Same place he was off before, isn't it?
Yeah, that's some damage to the rear wing this time. He's going to have to come to pit lane. Obviously, it's deranged the splitter underneath and also the rear wing, and hopefully it stays on as he heads down the straightaway here and does not depart, because that could create another full course caution if it came to rest in the middle of the racetrack. Hopefully Jason can get that car back to pit lane. They can effect repairs and get it done. I'm going to think it happened similarly, except there was another car right there. I wonder if the other car was involved as well, but ended up in almost the exact same spot that he was before, this time with the opposite end of the car striking the tire wall, and this time with damage, which he did not have last time. Colin Mullen all over the gearbox of the yellow number 40 just in front. Now showing Keith Grant behind the wheel, so perhaps they didn't do the driver change, because after the pit stop it was showing David in the car, but doesn't really matter who's in it. Colin Mullen trying to get by it. So is Stephen McAleer. And just behind them, the number 3 of Mike Skeen. He is down a lap, but behind Skeen is Trent Hinman charging forward in the number 7. Alan Brynjolfsson started that car, had a couple of problems, but Hinman, man, with that full course caution, it was perfect for them. It has brought him back into the battle.
It has, but he slipped back a bit shortly after the restart, but he's now made up that ground again and back onto that train of cars. And you talk about that battle between Colin Mullen and Stephen McAleer. Coincidentally, those two cars, because it's mainly his co-driver, Stephen McAleer's, Colin Mullen's co-driver that was battling with Stephen McAleer in the GT4 series over the last couple of weekends. So once again, they find themselves put together on the racetrack. Dakota Dickerson set a new fastest lap of the race last time around. That's Mullen off the road, isn't it?
Off at Hogpen, a long slide. He hasn't hit anything. Skeen trying to get past Stephen McAleer. Now Skeen outbreaks himself into turn 1. He is off. Skeen was trying to get his lap back. Only his second appearance in a prototype challenge machine this year. Finished on the podium the first time he was in it, and he's trying to keep it moving. And again, the wet grass here and slick Michelin tires is a problem. Colin Mullen, I believe, may be stuck there just off the front straightaway.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Was a contact between those two. It was the number 33 car was slowing to come into the pit lane. I wonder whether that caused that incident there. Could well have been. And most unfortunate for Mullen. The car kind of pointed the wrong way. You see what happens. That leading slows right down. He blocked the number 40 cars. He was headed towards the pit lane. Colin Mullen was stuck on the outside. Nothing he could have done about that. Well, unfortunately, it's one of the incidents that's going to happen here. But Ari Balog there, slowed up in the middle of the corner and caused the concertina behind him.
Yeah, I think Grant actually gets into him. Look at him come off the corner. Grant has no idea that Balog's going to slow to come into the pit lane. Yeah. You don't see it from that angle, but from the angle looking down the racetrack the other direction. Watch this. Well, this is Skeen off in 1. So to get back to Hogpen, and you'll see that one view looks like he just moves to avoid, but on the other view, I think what you'll see is that there's actually contact that's made. Look, so Grant hits the back of the 33, then slides left. Colin Mullen gets put off the racetrack by Grant. That's that contact that put Mullen to the outside, all precipitated by Ari Balog. And Balog, to me, looked like he was out in the fast lane slowing down. In my mind, he should have been tucked further right if he was going to commit to the pit lane.
Yeah, absolutely right. He should have been. And he's not a pro driver, but lack of respect there. I think he's trying to carry as much speed through that final corner. That's fine, but he should have made his intentions clear. And there's several ways to do that. These cars do have turn signals, I think, don't they? There's various things you can do to make sure the driver behind you knows you're going to be lifting off the throttle as soon as you come out of that corner, because Keith Grant was already looking to the inside, which is where Balog needed to be to get across the pit lane. Yeah. It's kind of one of the vagaries of this racetrack there, that it's a fast final corner, but I think you can carry all the speed through there, then move across to the inside, but he left his move to the inside a little bit too late, did Balog, and that caused that concertina effect. And really unfortunate for Colin Mullen just to get stuck in the grass there. He's on a little bit of an upslope there, wet grass, no way to get that car even turned around so he can go downhill on that big grassy area and get back onto the racetrack. But you know, really unfortunate. So that's going to bring out a full course caution with there's about 1 hour and 52 remaining in this race.
So we're closing in, Jeremy, on a normal race length for a prototype challenge. An hour and 45 minutes is the normal sprint distance for a prototype challenge. It's what we've run all year long. But now, effectively, for Dakota Dickerson, it's a sprint race distance with just him driving. Do expect to see Kranz back in the 21 at some point in time. I would expect to see Lynn stay in the 6. Championship implications are big here. The 54 has done exactly what they needed to do. We chronicled the problems that they had in qualifying, the broken drive shaft. They had to start from the back of the field. They've been patient when they needed to be patient, aggressive when they needed to be, and at this point in time, they've moved that 54 up, sitting third right now behind the safety car, and the championship leader is within striking distance for Dakota Dickerson.
Yeah, very much so. And you know, this is you know, a potential opportunity to make that splash and go that some of these teams might need. Then again, if the caution, I don't think the caution would be terribly long. I think in fact, actually we're within 15 minutes of the previous caution, aren't we? So this will be a short yellow, so the pits will actually not be opened. You won't be able to make a pit stop right now. And that number 33 team, by the way, they did make that that pit stop, and I think are back on the lead lap. Where is car number 33? Let's look at the tracker here, and can't see it actually. But I'm presuming that the car is out and back on the lead lap.
I would expect
should have been able to make that stop, I think, and stay on the lead lap.
You would think. Always good to see the fans who come out to Virginia International Raceway. Always come out in droves. And even with the weather being a little iffy this weekend, grandstands still full of fans watching IMSA Prototype Challenge on the hillside as well. And those boys added a little early in the day, but that's what happens when you go to the racetrack, Jeremy.
True.
And look at the tents, the campers that are here for the weekend. A lot of families come out and stay for the weekend in tents and motorhomes and make a weekend of racing here at VIR, and it's a great place to come. This is one of the finest facilities in North America, not only for the drivers, but for the fans as well. Great events, a go-kart track up the way that I've bruised myself on once or twice with some of my compadres in the broadcast world. We would never tell our producers that we were going to go to the go-kart track. It's the age-old, you're better to ask forgiveness than permission, right?
Have I used that one before?
Just don't get hurt is what you would hear, and then they kind of give you that frown, and it was almost like a parent saying, you know better.
So where is the number 33 car? Is he in that train? I think he might be a lap down.
At 8. I think maybe he is.
I think he's a lap down. I can't see on the tracker that there's any cars kind of at the not yet packed up behind everybody. So
I don't see any damage to it, which is
no. I think he lost a lap. I mean, he came into the pits, before the caution period came out, but
what's a 91?
He wasn't able to get back out again because they came in to make the pit stop as we saw they were doing. That's why what effectively caused the yellow flag. It wasn't the fact he was pitting. The yellow didn't come out because he made his pit stop. The yellow came out because he slowed too quickly coming into his pit stop. But when he resumed, he wasn't able to do so before the leaders had gone past. So Garrett Briss, potentially the fastest man in this field, or the fastest car in this field, is now a lap down to everybody else. So that's he's going to have to work his way through here, and then hope for another judiciously timed caution period, or go like the clappers to make up a lap, which is awfully difficult around here.
And remember this, Jeremy, there are minimum pit stop times if you take fuel. There's no such thing as a splash. The way I understand the rules, if you come in and put fuel in the car, it's 91 seconds.
That's right, and that first round of pit stops then Here we go. We're going to go back to green then with 37 laps now in the books.
It is on time to get it done. If you're going to do it, Lind, I should say, around the outside. Look at Dakota Dickerson from third. Is he going to take over the lead? He's side by side with DeWilde up into turn 3. No, there may have been a little contact, and now Rasmus Lind trying to get back by. This is aggressive stuff.
Well, and these are the two championship leading cars. Number 21 car leads the championship by just 10 points over the number 54 Dakota Dickerson. So that attempt to pass was not only for the lead of this race, but also potentially the lead in the championship as well for Dakota Dickerson. He's really on the case here. He's caught right up again, despite that big slide he had in turn 3. He's caught right up again with Hugo DeWilde as they head up the hill through the climbing exit up toward Oak Tree Turn.
Forget the complicated math, what could be, what should be, who can move, this, that, and the other. It's very simple, Jeremy. Whichever car finishes in front of the other one takes the championship lead, is in the championship lead when we leave here at Virginia International Raceway. Dakota Dickerson, a lot more experience in this type of car, in the LMP3 machinery, than DeWilde out in front in the 21. He needs to get this done before Krantz gets back in. And it looks like the 21 may have a little bit of straight line speed. We know that the 54 running a little bit higher downforce setting through Hogpen this first lap. Dickerson with a good run. Let's look at the gap and what happens to it as they get down towards turn 1. Different type cars, Duquesne chassis in the hands of DeWilde out in front, then the Ligier. And a Ligier in the hands of Rasmus Lind in third. Dickerson, if he's got the higher downforce, this is where you take advantage of it. What can you do under braking? Impressed with DeWilde, the 18-year-old Belgian, out in front, doing a great job. A lot of pressure. We talked about this, Jeremy. Maurice Krantz's championships are squarely on the shoulders of this teenager.
Yeah, true, and that's a lot of responsibility to bear, isn't it, for Hugo? But he's done a nice job there to maintain that lead at the end of the straight, and clearly Dakota Dickerson was able to get that Ligier chassis up to speed right away at that restart. You talked about it a little bit earlier on, Brian, so that the chicanes sometimes take just a little bit more time to build the heat and pressures into their Michelin tires, and Dakota Dickerson was trying to take advantage of that, but DeWilde fought him off, and now they're absolutely nose to tail as they head uphill toward on the roller coaster.
Yeah, Dickerson with a great run off of Oak Tree that time, but looks like the Duquesne maybe have a mile an hour or so more. Difficult to get anything done right in here. Maybe on the last lap you could stick your nose down inside, but we already saw Maurice Krantz trying to get past lap traffic and the perils that await you if you do it wrong. And for Dakota Dickerson, just trying to take measure right now of the 21 in front. Okay, what does that car have that I don't? Where is he quick? Where do I close on him? Where do I have an advantage? Where is there a disadvantage? As the 47 has just come out of the pit lane, this is going to be a pick. And look at Lind in the 6 up beside Dickerson. He takes the position.
Wow, great opportunist move there by the Swede Rasmus Lind to get past the similar car, two Ligiers there, of course, and the number 47, Dario Cangialosi, doing a respectful job there to get out of the way of the leaders. He knows he's many laps down now after those successive pit stops. He's 6 laps off the pace, is Dario, so hats off to him there for getting out of the way of those leaders. Let them get on with their battle.
Rasmus Lind now in second. Perhaps Dakota Dickerson, Josh Sarget's championship hopes rest with Rasmus Lind. Let him take the battle to DeWilde. Let him go up there and fight, and if the two get tangled up, Dickerson can get through. He'd like to do it on his own. He'd like to clear both of them and set sail, but I'm not sure the speed exists in the 54 right now, Jeremy.
No, I mean, and the lap times 42.6 last time. It's difficult to overtake around here, isn't it, Brian? We've seen how difficult it is to overtake. These cars are very, very closely matched, and if one car's got the straight line speed, it's awfully difficult to get alongside in the braking area to make a pass. We saw Dakota Dickerson try it several times. He's made a couple of passes to turn 4, which for him is the best opportunity. But I think at this stage we're still 1 hour 40 minutes remaining. This is the normal race length for these cars. So we've got effectively now a full race distance to go. And we've got a heck of a battle up in front here with Hugo de Wilde, Rasmus Lind, Dakota Dickerson, and Stephen McAleer pretty much nose to tail. Trent Hinman is poised as well in that bright yellow Volt racing with Archangel Ligier as well.
Well, and for Trent Hinman in that bright yellow number 7, he's got this gnat behind him in Garrett Grist. Grist being shown a lap down, but not letting Hinman get away, filling his mirrors. That's not for position, but if Grist gets by, it throws a car between Hinman and McAleer in front, and that makes it difficult then for Hinman to get past McAleer. So that's the problem when you have a Mike Skeen that we see in the number 3, and for Garrett Grist, they're a lap down. Tonis Kazimit's in there as well, another very, very fast race car driver thrown into the mix. And even though they're a lap down, they're not just going to disappear. There's Kazimit's in the black, orange, and white. Number 60 just behind him, Mike Skeen. Skeen with his problems earlier in turn 1. Went off there, lost positions, but now Keith Grant in the 6th position. Grist all over. You talk about how quick he is in this prototype challenge machinery, and he is not letting Hinman get away.
No, and Gavin Grist, he's set the fastest lap of the weekend so far in the official session. That was the first session of the weekend on Friday. Turned a 1 minute 40.6. Last time around for Garrett Grist was a 1:42.5, which is that car's fastest lap in this race so far. So still a couple of seconds away from the car's potential. You see Rasmus Lind challenging once again as they head around turn 1. Is he going to be able to make a move at turn 4 on our race leader Hugo de Wilde?
And a problem for the 40, Grant off down in turn 1. Don't know if there was contact involved there, but think about this as far as the championship goes. As Grist has gotten past Hinman, we were talking about how quick he is. Hinman needs to just say, let him go. And I wonder what the radio communication is right now to de Wilde behind the wheel of the 21. If Lind, who has absolutely nothing to lose, is putting too much pressure on. There's the contact. Kazimit's Grant side to side down in turn 1, and that sends Grant off to the outside. I'm sure that will be looked at by the officials to see if that was just fair, hard-nosed racing or a little more than that. But meanwhile, up front, what I was saying, Jeremy, what are they saying to de Wilde? If it gets too intense, if there's too much pressure, if Lind is willing to risk too much, do you let him through? Granted, it's Dickerson that's just behind you, but all you need to do is finish in front of the 54. 2 spots is better than 1, but don't throw it all away if Lind gets to be too aggressive.
That's a good point. Rasmus Lind on the last lap set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:41.840 for Rasmus in that Motel 6 car for Performance Tech Motorsports. It's kind of a 6 in second place at the moment and really putting the pressure on Hugo de Wilde.
Talk about the teenager with the pressure of Kranz's championship on his shoulders. He has been perfect to this point on the restart. Every lap that he's put in, he's defended when he needed to and hasn't risked too much to keep Lind behind, but Lind very aggressive. And again, you look at the championship implications of it, Jeremy, and Rasmus Lind, Dan Goldberg in 5th, their best finish of the season, a 2nd place at Sebring, a 3rd at Watkins Glen last time out. Goldberg and Lind have had speed. They would like to take a victory, and they don't really have a lot to lose. Oh, and there he goes around. That's a Danny Sullivan.
What happened there?
That was crazy. Rasmus Lind, a spin off of turn 10. Look at this. Gets through a slide sideways. The car hops a little bit, starts to go over then comes back around a complete 360 and maintains the position. And a problem for the 21.
Slow.
And just like that, the championship complexion changes. A problem for the 21. De Wilde, slow, well off the pace.
So Rasmus Lind spun on that lap and now leads the race.
At the top of the screen on the replay, coming off, and then a puff of smoke for De Wilde as he came off of Oak Tree, tracked out, upshifting off of the corner, and then he grabs the fourth gear, and a puff of blue smoke out of the back. You were talking earlier, Jeremy, and you shouldn't have said it. You talked about how reliable the power plants were. They're going to call you. If indeed it's a problem with the engine, it's going to be your fault. 21 to the pit lane. They'll fuel it just as a precaution. They can't work on it yet. They'll go ahead and fuel it just in case it's an easy fix. And once the fuel is in, I would expect to see the engine cover come off. Looked like they were even having a... See, one of the mechanics in the back kind of giving the cut sign across the throat, telling them to shut the engine down. Here comes the engine cover.
Man.
Just like that. Just like that. 10 points was Maurice Krantz's lead coming in, but it is not over. It's an hour and 34 minutes to go. And I'm just looking at the body language by those mechanics. The one nearest the wall looked in and just hung his head and began to kind of slowly walk away. If indeed the 21 is out and the 54 stays, the championship lead would go to the 54. I'm not even going to go there yet with an hour and 33 minutes left to go in this race. But even if the 54 were to drop out now and De Wilde out, you see his head shaking. I think it's day done for the 21. It's why we race, Jeremy. It's why we race. You never know what's going to happen. Think about what just happened. We saw Rasmus Lind, a complete 360, the car airborne, didn't lose a position, carried on, and 2 corners later, the race leader came off the corner, upshifted 2 times, and a mechanical problem. And now a problem for the 47, Cangialosi in the fence.
Man, this is a dramatic race, isn't it? Just astonishing to think that Rasmus Lind should spin on that last lap and end up in the lead of the race. I mean, in second place.
I still can't
not
believe
many people
that.
can say that.
It was the oddest thing. I've never seen one of these cars hop like that. The car slid sideways. We talked about it earlier. It's a 145-mile-an-hour corner. The car slid sideways and then developed so much grip, so much downforce. Watch the right side tires. There's the slide. They just dig in. He starts to go over. And you've got to think Dakota Dickerson was all over the brace going, whoa, this is going to be ugly. And it was ugly. Look at the right side tires just dig in.
That's amazing.
And the car almost goes over and then around. He releases the brakes.
Well, Brian, his lap time was a 144.8, including that spin. His previous lap was a 42.0, so he only cost him 2 seconds on that lap. And on his next lap, he sets the fastest lap of the race. We're under caution now, but he set the fastest lap of the race, did Rasmus Lind, a 141.535 for the young Swede. That was an amazing couple of laps.
I've never seen anything like it. I mean, truly, other than Danny Sullivan at the Indianapolis 500, I've never seen anything like that. But even Sullivan didn't get airborne, and look what all the turbulence has done, not to the shock cover that's missing, but to the windshield wiper. Sliding sideways, going backwards like that, completely inverted the windshield wiper.
That was truly bizarre. So what does all that mean then? So
I don't know.
It means that we've only got, I think we've only got now 5 cars on the lead lap. Because Garrett Grist, he's up into second position on the road, but he's still a lap behind the race leader, a lap and a car length behind Rasmus Lind. The third car on the road is Stephen.
Here it is again.
McAleer.
Look at this.
That's just incredible.
And you know what? You
Cost
have
him
to
2
give
seconds.
Rasmus Lind massive credit. He gets on the curb, the car starts to go around, he steers into the slide. You can see the correction with the front tires, but he stays collected. And here's how I know that. Watch the tires. He releases the brake right there. When he knows the car's about to come around and get to 360, he released the brakes, which he had locked early. He released the brakes so the wheels would turn and the car would roll. And that's exactly what he did. And I mean, masterful job. Masterful job. He may not have taken a breath yet inside the car, but maybe now he can. But just a spectacular job of driving by Rasmus Lind, and now finds himself in the lead. That's the other thing that's crazy to me. That happened in turn 10, just 2 corners later, that very same lap. Seconds later, the leader of the race comes off the corner, goes through 2 upshifts, and loses the drivetrain of the engine.
Yeah.
And it just that quickly, it changes. Speaking of just that quickly, Rasmus Lind, just behind him, has the fastest car on the racetrack, Garrett Grist, a lap down. So, Jeremy, all Grist has to do is get past Rasmus Lind, another full course caution, and where is Garrett Grist?
Yeah, indeed, back on the lead lap.
He's back on the lead lap and
right.
back around at the back of the field.
Yeah, that's right. So the third place car on the road behind the race leader Rasmus Lind and a lap down Garrett Grist in car number 33 is Dakota Dickerson then in car number 54. He's running third position on the road but second in the race ahead of Stephen McAleer, Trent Hinneman and Brian Thenis, who've done a really fine job in this opening stint, and he finds himself in 5th place. And once the pits are open, I think we'll see that car onto pit lane and Jacob Edson taking over behind the wheel. And then the first car lap down in 6th position is Garrett Grist. Mike Skeen, who has all sorts of excitement, is in 7th. David Grant now is at the wheel, number 40 car, because they came in and made a pit stop right before this full course caution came out, so they've lost a lap as well. So effectively on the same kind of strategy, if you like, there as Garrett Grist, but he has made the driver change and a pit stop.
So right now, the 54 pits from 2nd, and this is a strategy call. They did not need this fuel at this point in time, although they were closing in on it. One more stop will get them to the finish for sure. 91 seconds, the minimum time from the pit in line to the pit out line. 3 working crew members on the car, 1 fueling, 1 for tires. And you can actually have someone else working, then a fire bottle person and a vent person if you need it for the fuel system. But 3 working crew members. And there's the other working crew member. He's changing. You had somebody changing the front tires and another crew member changing rear tires. You saw the fueler. So those are your working crew members. And then the fire bottle is not considered a working crew member, but you have to have him. And if you need a vent person for the fuel system based upon the fueling apparatus that you have, you can have a vent person out there. And all this does is that time on pit road means you don't have to have multiple crew members. You don't need to have more expensive equipment. There's no time to be made on a pit stop by throwing money at it. Also makes it safer because no one's in a hurry to get things done. You know that it's going to take some time to get it done. And I think it's one of the rules that I love about that.
Yeah, I agree. And oops, big lockup trying to get some heat into the tires there for Dakota Dickerson. That was a big lockup into turn 1. Not something you want to do too much of. You don't want flat spots on those tires. Big puffers of tire smoke he's left in his wake. So hopefully those tires will be okay, and he'll be able to catch up the field and get going again. So I'm sort of surprised that he was the only one to come onto the pits, come and make a pit stop during that caution period, because in the past, I don't think you were able to refuel the cars under yellow, were you? But I think you can nowadays. Is that correct, Brian?
I was good with you saying all of that until the very end when you said, is that correct, Brian? As I'm trying to open up my 2021 sporting regulations.
Oh, you got it handy?
Nah, well, I have it on my computer, which is what I'm looking for. But
okay, fine.
But you threw me under the bus on that, you know?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Well, hey, look, at least we're both under the same bus, right?
Well, yeah, and you and I do the same thing. There are so many rule books and sporting regulations and sporting codes running around in our heads that it's hard to keep them straight.
Not wrong. But so it looks like we're going to go back to green. Well, I can't remember why this caution period was called now. For
well,
now,
the 47, Cangialosi.
Oh, that's right. He was off the road again.
There
wasn't he? Yeah.
at turn 4 in the tire wall. That brought that out. But this is interesting. So the strategy with the 54, no one else took it. The 6, Rasmus Lindh with his Danny Sullivan, can he spin and win? The fastest car on the racetrack is Garrett Grist, second on the racetrack. If he gets by Rasmus Lindh, we have another full course caution. He'll be back around to the back of the lead lap cars. He'll be a contender for a win because he has been rocket ship fast in this machinery. The championship, we came in here only a 10-point lead for Maurice Krantz. He's out of this race with a mechanical problem. The drama just continues to get added to here with an hour and 24 minutes to go. Round 5 of 6 for IMSA Prototype Challenge in the 2021 season, and the only 3-hour race on the calendar, and it has been full of drama already. Just a little bit less than a normal sprint distance race to go from here at VIR.
Yeah, so a lot to play out in the remaining time in this race, that's for sure. And we're going to have we can go restart then, don't we? So we're going to have a restart probably next time around. But the strategy is always important in these long distance races, and you've got to make sure you get it right. But for Rasmus Lindh now, he's going to come under pressure from Garrett Grist. He certainly doesn't want Garrett Grist back on the lead lap again. He's going to try his hardest to keep that number 33 car behind him. But at the same time, he wants to make sure he doesn't make any mistakes as well. But both of those two, Garrett Grist and Rasmus Lindh, they're both products of the Road to Indy, the open wheel series that leads with the scholarships towards the NTT IndyCar series. Both had a lot of success there in terms of wins. Neither of them actually won a championship, but Rasmus Lindh came very, very close to winning 2 different championships in both USF 2000 and in Indy Pro 2000. Unfortunately, he came across the buzzsaw that was Kyle Kirkwood, who beat him in both championships. But in Indy Pro 2000, he only lost it at the final race by, I think it was 2 points was the margin between Lindh and Kirkwood. So clearly he's a supremely talented young man. He's got this opportunity to join his Performance Tech Motorsports team, and he's grabbed it with both hands as that 20-year-old from Gothenburg in Sweden, Rasmus Lindh.
Well, think about how many young drivers have come along at just the wrong time. I'll throw our good friend out there as well, Calvin Fish, who during the Formula 4 2000 championship in Great Britain, and I know you followed this with great interest during the time, Calvin, one of the only drivers to beat Ayrton Senna in the Formula 4 2000 series. Of course, he only did it like twice. I think Senna won the other 15 races. I asked Calvin once, why didn't you get so frustrated that you took him out? And Calvin said, well, I couldn't get close enough to him. But you think about the performance that he had. I mean, he was the guy that finished second to Senna, but second didn't matter. And Calvin's European career then moved to the United States. And there have been a ton of those. You guys, when you race with guys like Senna or a Kyle Kirkwood over here, as we've seen in that ladder system in the past, sometimes you're standing there raising your hand trying to do anything to get noticed, and there are a lot of young drivers out there that have mega talent. And I will tell you, Jeremy, it's one of the things I love about the Prototype Challenge series, bronze and silver drivers only in the series, and what that brings is very talented drivers who don't make their living doing this, oftentimes paired with young professionals who are trying to make a living doing this. Very talented drivers like we just named, Rasmus Lindh, Stephen McAleer, Trent Hinman, Dakota Dickerson, Garrett Griss, Mike Skeen, and on. Colin Mullen, just look through that list of young drivers that are there who are trying to make a name for themselves, and they're using Prototype Challenge and really sports cars in general to do it. There was a time when young drivers who started in open wheel ranks focused solely on open wheel ranks, and I think we've seen this renaissance of sports car racing over the last several years, thanks to the sanctioning bodies here in the States kind of embracing sports car racing as a whole and not just their package. What that's done is build sports car racing, and in my mind, taking some of these youngsters out of the open wheel ranks, saying, hey, you can make a living, you can have a career driving sports cars, and it's why we see the talent that we see these days.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And going back to that F2000 back in Ayrton Senna, Calvin Fisher, as I was lucky enough to be covering the series that year, all the junior series in the UK, and tell you what, Calvin Fish was a heck of a race car driver.
Don't say that. He's
seriously.
listening.
He seriously is, and he doesn't really get the credit he deserves, because unfortunately, he just, as you say, he came across Ayrton Senna, and unlike other drivers, including Senna, Calvin had not done a year of Formula Ford 1600 before stepping up to F2000. He went straight from go-karts to F2000, and Senna, as it turned out, and actually was apparent then, was clearly very, very special. So for Calvin to be running with him and beating him on several occasions was no mean feat.
But I mean, think of that when you look at those feeder series, especially in Europe, and you run down the list of Formula One drivers who were there that moved on but didn't move on to the top rides because they were second or third, and they were second or third to someone who was truly special, like we were just talking about. Same with drivers over here, and as you were talking about in the Road to Indy series or in Formula Regional Americas or F4 US, it's the same thing. The talent is so deep. There are so many of them out there. It's why, as I said, the renaissance of sports car racing over the last 5 to 10 years has been great, because it's brought a lot of that talent into the sports car field, whether that's in prototypes or in GT-based machinery. And it's why I love series like this, because we get to see some of that young talent paired with some of these drivers who don't make a living doing this. And it not only makes for great racing on the racetrack, but it makes for some great friendships going forward and some great education as far as the business world for some of these young drivers to pair with some of these drivers. And it gives them an opportunity to not only have fun driving good quality race cars, but understanding the business world as well. We're about to understand racing in Prototype Challenge, because we're back to green with 1 hour and 18 minutes to go. Rasmus Lindh in the number 6 out front, second car, the bright yellow and black number 33. A lap down, Garrett Griss trying to keep Stephen McAleer behind him, because Griss wants to get past the blue and red number 6, get his lap back, and get back in contention here at Virginia International Raceway. If he can get past the 6 and we get another full course caution, he'll circle around the track and come back to the back of the leaders and have a shot at this. Look at the intense battles a little further back. Remember, Dakota Dickerson in the 54, just behind the red and white 17 right there, just pitted during this full course caution. A strategy move for them. Their nearest competitor in the championship leader coming into VIR, Maurice Krantz, is out. Could be a big points day, Jeremy, for Dakota Dickerson and Josh Sargent. 13 LMP3-1 entries in the field today. That should classify the 21 car, I think, by the end of the day, as probably 13th or 14th in the field, maybe 180 points for them when it's all said and done. And if Dakota Dickerson, Josh Sargent can finish up on the podium, could be a big points day. It was only 10-point lead for Krantz when they came in to the race this weekend, round 5 of 6.
Yeah, and it could actually end up being even worse for the 21 team, because all those cars up behind them that have had problems, the 2 47 motorsports cars, 47 and 74, and the number 61 for Conquest Racing, they're all back on the racetrack. Still several laps behind 21, but we don't think the 21 is going anywhere at all, and the other guys are. So finally, after a long time in the pits, George Stakos has taken over the wheel of that car number 61, many laps down, but he's running second in the P3-2 class out of the two cars, but it was already, even just by starting the race, has clinched the championship for that team, and Danny Koch and George Stakos.
Stephen McAleer now in second in the 43. Robillard racing that Duquesne chassis, and he was saying that he's one of the drivers that I spoke to who said he felt like the Ligier was the faster car around this racetrack, lap time wise, overall in good conditions, but it's where you make that lap time. Right now, the number 7 of Trent Hinman just behind him, two young guns, McAleer and Hinman, with Lind out in front. Then Dakota Dickerson, who should be, if they continue on to finish this race, the championship leader at the end of the day. And it's just how, you think about what's going on in the MLT Motorsports camp that feels that 54 car, and they made that strategic move to fuel on that last pit stop. And you've got to think that they're thinking about nothing other than trying to win this race, Jeremy. If they can take maximum points away when the 21 has their worst day on the season, that could mean a lot as we head into the final round at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta in just a few weeks' time.
Well, yeah, you're absolutely right there, and if they can win this race, it'll pretty much put the championship out of reach for the number 21 team, because that would require, if they go on to win the race number 54, that would require the number 54 car to have the same sort of bad luck and be out very early in the race in the finale in order for the 21 team to make up enough points to catch up again. So, but look, there's still, as you say, an hour and 14 minutes remaining in this race. Dakota Dickerson makes the move there on one of the lapped cars. He's, I'm sure, being relatively conservative at this stage. He knows now that he and his co-driver Josh Sarchet are looking very, very good in the championship. So absolutely no mistakes whatsoever. Now that's the primary focus for Dakota Dickerson in the remaining time in this race. If he can finish in the top 4 or 5, that'll still give him a very handy lead into the final race at the Petit Le Mans weekend at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta next month.
Well, and that's why I feel like they made that pit stop. You don't want to get mixed up there. You want to win the race. Let's try see if we can do it with some strategy. Everybody else is going to have to pit. Why don't we go ahead and do it now, see if we can get position by doing it with pit strategy. That way we don't have to go wheel to wheel. We would like to win the race. We'd like to take maximum points away from VIR, but let's not go wheel to wheel with somebody if we don't have to right now. We need a good finish, and if we can win this with strategy, that's what we'll do. That's why we saw that pit stop.
Yeah, exactly. Right, but meanwhile, out at the front of the field remains Rasmus Lind in that Motor 6 car. We see George Stakos going for a spin there in the Conquest Racing entry. Yet another spinner at the exit of the old Oak Tree turn. It was a huge Oak Tree planted on the inside of that turn, as he just got on the throttle a little bit too quickly there, George Stakos, coming out of that final corner. Just as George, he's a successful businessman from the Toronto area of Canada. It's effectively his first full season of racing. He was supposed to race last year, but with COVID and the problems getting in and out of Canada, he raced very little last season. So he doesn't have a lot of experience, but he is gaining it. And that was an experience there to spin at the old Oak Tree turn. That Oak Tree, of course, sadly perished in a major thunderstorm here several years ago now, but as a remark of respect, that is still known as Oak Tree Corner.
I was going to say, it will always be Oak Tree. And you have to think, too, that for George Stakos and Nick Janssen right now in the 15, the two LMP3 2 entries here, that is the older car. It does not have traction control. So it is easy to take that power from that 5-liter V8 in the back and get a little too greedy with the loud pedal there on the right and a little bit of wheel spin in that very, very tricky area of turn 11 and 12, and you can lose the rear end relatively quickly. And as you said, Stakos, not a lot of experience, and that just kind of bit him up there that time. The good thing is, slowest area of the racetrack, you typically don't hit anything up there with a spin like that, and he was able to get it refired and back underway. Meanwhile, Garrett Grist still putting the pressure on Rasmus Lind. We said that Lind and Goldberg were going to be aggressive and try to win this race. They've got a second, they've got a third, but they do not have a win. This would be huge for them. Dan Goldberg was really impressive both last year and this year in the opening rounds. Very, very quick. Rasmus Lind, very talented. And once they started pairing together, that six really came alive.
Yeah, it did, yeah. A couple of second place finishes for Rasmus Lind. And back in a predecessor of this championship, the old Prototype Challenge Series, as it used to be back when they had the Elan chassis, Dan actually did win a couple of races back in the early 2010s. He made his debut in that championship back in 2010. He won a couple of races for the same team, but he hasn't yet won a race in an LMP3 car, and would dearly love to do so today.
Did you see Garrett Grist? You see that? That wasn't lockup. It was almost lockup, Jeremy. That is somebody braking at the absolute limit. That left front just notching over. It kept turning. You saw the tire smoke off of it, but it was rolling over, obviously slower than the speed of the car across the ground. But that left front is the unweighted tire. Most of the load is over on the right front, which is why that left front was rolling slower, and you saw the tire smoke off of it. You can't brake any better than that. That won't flat spot the tire because the wheel didn't stop. But, I mean, that was what you see out of a Formula Car driver who can actually see the tire. Watch this. You'll never be able to read Michelin on the side of that left front. Oh, it stopped for just a second. You made a liar out of me. But, I mean, that was a tenth of a second maybe that it stopped. But that was just spectacular braking.
Yeah.
How hard is he pressing? There's an idea.
There's an idea, yeah. And he got off, he got off the brakes as soon as that wheel began to lock up. He got off the brakes, just ease the pressure a little bit, then hard on again to slow it down for the corner, make sure he doesn't miss the corner entirely. But that's, as you say, that's on the limit driving for that number 33 car of Garrett Grist. But Rasmus Lind is soaking up the pressure. Last time around was a 141.562, which is within fractions of a second of his best lap of the race so far, which is the fastest lap of the race. So Rasmus Lind is right on the limit there in that leading car, the Motel 6 car, in the blue and red colours from the second motorsports.
Well, think about this, Jeremy. We've heard anywhere between 50 and 57 minutes on fuel. And if you go to the 50 mark, that means you need to be able to run another 18 minutes. If you can get 55 out of it, you can run another 13 minutes. We need to keep an eye on the race clock at the top and see where we have cars coming in, because if you stop before an hour left to go in this race, or even shortly after an hour to go in this race, you might have to come back in. And again, with a minimum pit stop time, anytime you fuel the car, it's a 91-second pit stop. So you have to keep that in mind. You don't want to do that extra stop, because every stop that you put fuel on it is that length.
Yeah, and as we see, you basically lose a lap, just about a lap, making a fuel stop here. So that's something that all of these teams have got to bear in mind. And it's still, with still over an hour remaining. When do you make that final pit stop? We saw a couple of cars come in during that previous caution period. Number 54 car, in particular, number 40. Also, as a lap down, David Grant is now at the wheel, number 40 car, having taken over from his brother Keith. And they are running also one lap down in the 8th position. 3 cars are lap down. Number 33 is Garrett Grist, who's trying desperately to get back on the lead lap, but he can't find a way past our race leader, Rasmus Lind. Also one lap down, about he's actually 7 seconds behind us, so he's lost a little bit of ground. In number 3 car is Mike Skeen running 7th, and then a fair way back from him is David Grant in car number 40.
Garrett Grist matching the pace of the leader, Rasmus Lind, lap after lap, and as you said, just cannot find a way by. Lind up on the apex curbing at Oak Tree that time by, but still maintains the momentum. And looking at the front end of the Ligier chassis, both of these cars, Ligier's, it looks like the 33 running less front downforce with that just flat dive plane just below the headlights for Rasmus Lind. You see a much more aggressive dive plane under the headlights. There on the 33, they're almost flat. That's minimal front downforce that they're running, and they'll balance that with rear downforce, the rear wing. He should have better straight line speed, but if he can't get off the corner, it's not going to matter. He closes up a little bit, looks to the inside under braking, side by side, the car twitches, and he's through. Garrett Grist is through, but is Lind going to let him have it? I think at this point in time, if you're Rasmus Lind, you go, okay, you got me, have at it and go. I'm not going to throw a race win away because a lap car got their lead back. The interesting thing is you saw how much the 33 twitched in the brake zone. Downforce is not only good in the corners, but it helps the car stay planted in the brake zone. And for Garrett Grist, we saw his braking earlier into turn 4. He is all over it, and that car twitchy with that lack of downforce. He gets it done. He's back on the lead lap. If we get another full course caution, Garrett Grist could come into play for this race win, certainly for a podium finish in the 33.
Yeah, very much so. But he is going to need another fuel stop as well, though. So he's going to need some good fortune, I think, to make that happen. Meanwhile, in third place, that Volt lighting machine of Trent Hinman. He's maintaining the pace of those two leaders, just 2 seconds behind him, and he's running the same times as the leaders. That actually was Trent Hinman's fastest lap of the race last time, around 141.9. But he's certainly pushing hard and trying, or is able to maintain the same sort of pace as both Rasmus Lind and Stephen McAleer ahead of him. Meanwhile, behind them in the fourth position is Dakota Dickerson. Again, he's just turned his best lap of the race as well in MLT Motorsports car number 54, a 141.873.
Round 5 of the 2021 IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship underway from Virginia International Raceway. Just over an hour to go. This was a 3-hour race, the only 3-hour race on the 2021 calendar. Big championship implications when we came in. Only 10 points separated Maurice Krantz from Dakota Dickerson and Josh Charget. Krantz, problems with his teammate Hugo de Wilde behind the wheel. That car is out, and for the 54 of Dakota Dickerson, who runs 4th on the racetrack right now, this could be a big, big day in the championship. Could really separate themselves from Krantz with just one race to go at the final round at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta in just a few weeks' time.
And each of the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place cars, number 43, 7, and 54, all turned again their best laps on that last lap, with the slight mistake. I think Rasmus Lind was kind of caught off guard there at turn 1. I don't think he realized that Garrett Grist had a run on him and had the inside line before he even knew he was there, and as a result of that, it cost Rasmus Lind a bit of time. It cost him over a second compared to his 2nd and 3rd and 4th place cars.
Yeah, McAleer considerably quicker that time. Hinman right there within a couple of tenths of McAleer. That's 2nd and 3rd on the racetrack. And for Stephen McAleer and Joe Robillard, 2 top 5 finishes the last 2 rounds, and they have been strong. Stephen was really hopeful of the performance of that Robillard Racing Duquesne here at VIR. Loves this racetrack, has run well here in the past. Joe Robillard, a great opening stint, not putting a wheel wrong. He's handed that car over, and these longer races give these driver pairings where you have a gentleman driver and a pro driver a little better opportunity to finish farther up the order. It gives that pro driver a little more time to get things done, and that's exactly what Stephen McAleer is doing right now. And Jeremy, when that gap closes inside 2 seconds now, it just does something to you as a driver. They're a little closer, the rabbit's a little closer, and it's almost like they're pulling you closer each lap. You seem to find a way to pick up another 10th or 2. To me, it was easier to run fast when I had somebody to chase.
Yeah, fair comment, it is. Oh,
look at this.
Car, they got it back out again. Okay, that's start work. He's right now. That car is still 1 lap ahead of Courtney Crone, who's taken over from Jason Raven, number 74 car. So you think, wow, they've done a good job to get that car going, and whatever the problem was, it clearly wasn't terminal, and that could be very, very significant. So running out in the 12th position is car number 1. Meanwhile, a quick shout out also, Garrett Grist. You talked about having somebody to chase and going faster. Well, now in clean air, he's able to use that straight line speed advantage that he had, and he's just turned the fastest lap of the race as car number 33, Garrett Grist, 141.1. But this is big news for Ugo de Wilde in that number 21 car to get back out into this race. It seems to be up to speed as he's coming through the S's.
Yeah, he wasn't holding back at all. Garrett Grist, meanwhile, as you said, moving forward as he's moved out from Rasmus Lind, but Stephen McAleer really closing down on Lind in front of him, although the last time by, he was shown, I was going to say there was a problem with timing and scoring for a minute. He was shown 9.5 seconds back, but I could see him lurking back there. And right now for Rasmus Lind, he's going to catch the 61 of George Stakos at exactly the wrong place on the racetrack. He's going to catch him in the climbing S's, and that's going to give Stephen McAleer an opportunity to close a little more. Certainly Rasmus Lind respects turn 10 maybe a little earlier, more than he did earlier in the day. Jeremy, after the problem he had there, McAleer gets balked a little bit by the 61.
Yeah, and George Stakos saw the first car coming and left him plenty of room. I don't think he saw McAleer coming. Took him by surprise there. And McAleer, he just turned his best lap last time around, 141.4. So he made up nearly a second on the last lap over Rasmus Lind. I think that cost him some momentum as he had to get past George Stakos at the Oak Tree turn. But still, he's charging hard as Stephen McAleer in that second place car, the Robillard Motorsports car number 43.
Stephen McAleer, no stranger to victory lane, but in IMSA Prototype Challenge competition, it has been a dry spell. He would like to hunt down Lind, and he and Joe Robillard have such a great relationship, such close friends. If Stephen McAleer could bring a win home for Joe Robillard here at VIR, that would be a huge, huge day. Meanwhile, Rasmus Lind trying to do the same for Dan Goldberg, and Trent Hinman holding down third. Just don't think that he has the consistent pace that McAleer and Lind have. I think there's some magic in that number 7 car, but to me, Jeremy, it doesn't seem like it's a car that Trent Hinman can drive consistently quick.
Yeah, it does seem that way, doesn't it? I agree with you. And Garrett Grist has reset fastest lap fractionally quicker, 41.158. Compare that to the only other driver in the 41s is actually Colin Mullins, just at 141.7 in the car number 34. He had must have had another longer pit stop for some reason. Number 34 car having been off the road earlier on, and the only other car in the 41s is Dakota Dickerson in 4th place, trying to track down Trent Hinman.
And hats off to Colin Mullen for that lap after the problems that he had with the kerfuffle onto the front straightaway when the 33 was about to come in, checked up, caught Keith Grant by surprise. Grant moved, hit Mullen. Mullen's off the racetrack, had a great run going in the top 5. Even though he's now 5 laps off the leader, that car back on track, and Colin Mullen showing just how quick of a race car driver he is down in the 41s. With some of the fastest cars on the racetrack right now, but well back in the order. Now the leader to pit road. 57 minutes and change to go, Jeremy. And this could be the last stop.
Absolutely, it's the last stop. I think, this is 57 minutes is about the limit of these Ligier cars. So it's as early as he can possibly make it. He's going to make that switch now. They will take on fuel and fresh tyres, but a bit sticker tyres going on to that car. So a brand new set for Rasmus Lind to finish off this race. And the number 43 car also onto pit lane, and the number 7 as well. So Dakota Dickerson, who made his stop a while ago, is out now in the lead of this race.
But he's going to need to stop as well. There's no way Dakota Dickerson can go to the end, that's for sure. He does inherit the lead, and the 43 is in. And remember, minimum time on pit road is 91 seconds. You cannot really make time on a pit stop unless your competitor has a problem. If you both match the minimum time, whatever the gap was when you came into pit lane, is what the gap should be. Question is, the tires that are going on the car, we saw sticker tires going on the number 6. Not sure what tires are going on the 43. And what I mean by that, Jeremy, is sticker tires versus scrubs. So the 43 was away sooner, the 6 out in front. But if you've got scrubs, if you're Stephen McAleer and you already have a set of Michelin tires that has been scrubbed, run a lap or 2, they will come in quicker than the sticker tires, and Lind with lockup on those stickers down into turn 1 as soon as he gets there. There's the 33 of Grist. Bye. Be interesting.
Yeah, so that is that's 4th position, isn't it?
Yep.
But of course, Grist also will need another pit stop before the end of this race.
And here's the thing. This is where drivers make time, where the good drivers can really, really make a difference. And that is on those cold tires, on sticker tires. If you can stay balanced, stay calm, but still provide lap time, even with minimal grip on those cold tires before they have temperature, before they have pressure, that's where the magic is really made on those out laps. Same thing with an in lap. If you can maintain the pace and do everything, brake at the last minute, get it down to the pit lane speed limit at the line and not 20 feet before, you can make time. But the out laps, really, really important.
It is very, very critical there. And by the way, I think number 47 car's just gone behind the walls. Oh no, it's just shown us coming back out again. I was going to say it had gone back behind the wall, but apparently it's just turned another lap. So just one of the scoring systems it has. The number 21 car, by the way, is still running in 12th position and has a couple of laps in hand over the number 74. But out in front now, Dakota Dickerson on his own. Last lap around was another 41 for Dakota. And in second position now is Garrett Grist, albeit almost a complete lap behind.
Mike Skeen now to the pit lane, and I want to give this shout out to both Tonis Kasemets in the 60 and Mike Skeen in the number 3. 2 drivers who are not on the lead lap. Cars problems early on and weren't a part of it, and both of those guys, the consummate professionals. Tonis Kasemets, one of the hardest nosed drivers in the field in anything that he runs, including if you go meet him up on the go-kart track here at VIR. He doesn't let anybody have a position. But both of those drivers saw the leaders coming through, knew their position within this race, and made it easy for the leaders to get by. Tonis Kasemets did it a couple of laps ago. Mike Skeen just did it for Dakota Dickerson down the back straightaway. So even though Mike Skeen, Tonis Kasemet's not having the best of days, hats off to those guys, consummate professionals, like I said.
Sure enough, there's a pit stop there for Mike Skeen, the second one, the final one of the day for that number 3 car. It was still a lap down to the leaders before making this stop. So it was a good first stint by Mark Sherrin there, just effectively making his series debut. He tried to do a race early this season, but didn't actually start the race. I think that was at Watkins Glen, and didn't actually get to start the race, although for some reason he was credited with championship points. I'm not quite sure why that was, but he had a good first stint. He handed over that car to Mike Skeen. Both might have had an off at one stage in the game, but the car is still running, as is Dakota Dickerson, staying out there still to make his final pit stop. And generally speaking, if in this situation with we've got 5 cars on the lead lap, by staying out there, if there's a full course caution, that would enable all the other cars to go past you if you need to make a pit stop, that is, which he does. But in this instance, if there is a full course caution and Dakota Dickerson can make that stop under yellow, that could play into his advantage. So at this stage, I think the plan for number 54 car is to stay out as long as he can and try and build a lead, another 41 that time around, 41.8 for the race leader Dakota Dickerson, coming from 54.
Closing in on 51 minutes to go in the penultimate round of the IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship. This one, round 5, from Virginia International Raceway. The leader, Dakota Dickerson, out in front, and he's got a problem. Car seems to be slowing down. Left rear tire. Something is wrong. Is it flat? It looks to be. And now a problem for Dickerson. I expected to see him in this lap, Jeremy, because his lap times were stellar while Rasmus Lindh was trying to get the sticker Michelin tires up to speed. Dakota Dickerson was flying, and again, that's how you make time when your competitor is on new tires. If you can get clean racetrack and get some flyers in, you're going to make time on them. That's what Dakota Dickerson was doing. I figured he would pit this lap. Now he has to. That left rear Michelin is down. Wow. Just drama everywhere.
What? Yeah. Was he off the road? Or?
Coming into the climbing S's on the long shot there, the third car in the order, there it went. You see the smoke just there at the apex. It's the left rear, so it wasn't because he was up on the curb.
Wow, what
a great job to hold on to that Ligier chassis. That was an instantaneous deflation right there at the apex of the beginning of the climbing S's, and that could have been disastrous. We've seen an ebb and flow to this championship, and again, something coming up, something unexpected, drama, and Dakota Dickerson has gotten the 54 back in. That may have taken their chances of victory away. Scrub Michelin tires, it looks like, going on. A sticker on the rear, a scrub on the left front. That's interesting. Try to get a look at the right front Michelin, which will go on, and looking for the tread. See, is it a sheen? Yeah, it looks like a sticker on the right front as well, but it was a scrub on the left front. That makes sense. Heavy loading on the left side tires around this racetrack. That may have taken the victory away, Jeremy, for the 54 because of that long half lap to get that flat tire in. But if they can hold on and finish this race still with a top 5 finish, which certainly they should be able to do, it's going to be a big points day for them versus the 21 and Maurice Krantz.
It is, as Garrett Grist goes across the line there. He will now be the new race leader with 65 laps in the books. Finally, they complete the tyre change on the number 54 down off the jacks, and he'll be just waiting for the time limit. He knows what the minimum time limit is to spend in pit lane, and he'll light up those new rear Michelin tires and be back underway again. But you're right, he'll be down, I think, in the 5th position. But there is still a pit stop to come for the number 33 of Garrett Grist.
And we said that's why we race. It changes literally by the moment. Hopefully for the MLT Motorsports team, there's been no damage. The tire didn't come apart, and hats off to Michelin. They are known for building a tire that, even if there is an instantaneous deflation like that, we seldom see, as George Stakos has a problem, we seldom see those tires come apart and turn into saw blades, so to speak, in deranged bodywork and even suspension components and brake lines. So that Michelin stayed together, but he does have that, well, not anymore, I was going to say, he has that flapping piece of bodywork, Jeremy, but that righted itself.
Yeah, and I mean, there's certainly concern now in that MLT Motorsports camp because, why did he get a puncture? Because we didn't see the car off the road at all. I didn't see any visible mistake by the race leader. So is there something rubbing on that left rear corner? Is that what caused the problem? That's certainly one of the things that's going through that team's mind. I'm sure they had a good close look during that pit stop, as we see Dakota Dickerson then now weaving around on the straight, the far end of the racetrack from the pit lane, just trying to build some heat and temperature into these tires. We've seen all weekend long how difficult it is to get the tires up to temperature on a track that's not particularly grippy.
More problems for the 34 and Conquest Racing. Colin Mullen behind the wheel of that Duquesne chassis right now, and the crew going to work. I was trying to see if that was an airline that he was putting there, perhaps blowing the radiators out. Remember when Mullen went off the racetrack and slid through the grass? Easy to pack mud and grass in that radiator opening. Perhaps they're trying to clear that out, blow that out. I would expect to see a little more work up towards the front of that, but it looked like an airline that was going in there. crew member there on the left rear, what happens is it packs the radiator and then the temperature begins to climb. And with where they are running in the order right now, it would be foolish to stay out and risk damaging the engine or any of the other components that are cooled by any of the coolers, the radiators that are in those side pots. Come in, get it taken care of, and then get back out on the racetrack.
So Garrett Grist continues to run in the lead now. Last lap times of 41.6. That time pretty much matched 41.5 by Stephen McAleer in third position. He's extending his lead over Rasmus Lind, but the other 4 cars that remain on the lead lap, number 6, 43, 7, 54 and 17, they've all made their final pit stops for fuel, and Garrett Grist still needs to do so. Here's number 21 car back. I wouldn't have thought it needed fuel at this stage, so is that another problem for number 21? He's 8 laps currently behind the number 34 car that also remains still in the pit lane, and now that number 21 machine of the championship leader coming into this weekend, Ugo de Wilde, shared a car with the championship leader Moritz Kranz. Ugo making his debut this weekend, but Moritz obviously a lot of experience in this championship, and they remain now just about a lap and a half ahead of Courtney Crone, who's driving the number 74 car and in danger of putting the number 21 another lap, another position down the order.
Well, and that's just it. Every position is going to count, Jeremy. I mean, when you get down to the latter half of the top 10, that's when the points really begin to fall off. You get 350 to win, 320 for second, 300 for third, and then every point matters after that. You get down to 12th, 13th, 14th, that's 190, 180, 170, and if you don't think 10 points matter, well, they had a 10-point lead when they came in here. So every position that you get back, I think they're going to keep an eye on the 74 and the 47 and see if the 47 goes back out. Keep an eye on the 74. If we're going to lose another position to them, is there enough left in the car to go complete another lap? You know, it literally simple math like that to try to make sure that you can hold on to the position and not lose another 10 points. They'll also keep an eye on the 54. You know that the 33 is going to have to pit. It will be at least a 91-second pit stop. That should put Dakota Dickerson up into 4th, Jacob Edson in the 17 up into 5th. And so I don't think Dickerson, after that tire having a problem, I don't know that he'll ever be able to close down on Trent Henman again, but still a top 5 finish for them. You look at that, if he were to finish 4th, they'll collect 280 points. And if the 21 walks away with 180 points, it'll be 90 points to the good for the 54 as they lead VIR. And that's just how close this championship is going to be when we go to the final round at Road Atlanta.
Stephen McAleer through the climbing. Yes, he's there in car number 43 for Robillard Racing, that Duquesne chassis. Other than that Duquesne in 3rd position, all the other top 6 cars are Ligiers. The Grant brothers, David, is in 7th place in car number 40. That also is a Duquesne, but it's been a Ligier race so far at the moment. As we see, a couple of cars struggling at this stage. But Stephen McAleer is closing on Rasmus Lind. Each last couple of laps, he's reduced that deficit. It's now just over a second between the 2nd and 3rd place cars.
There's McAleer at the top of the hill coming down through the roller coaster. Lind in the red and blue number 6 onto the front straightaway. Ligier in the hands of Lind. Duquesne in the hands of McAleer. And Stephen said he felt like the Ligier was the faster car. He's sitting in the behind the wheel of the Duquesne chassis. What do you do? He's had time to study. He's been around him. What's his plan with just over 41 minutes to go? And that's what the professional race car driver does. He doesn't just get there and pounces. It's taking him a while to close in. And every lap, he has a look. What do I see him doing? Where's he turning in? Is he turning in earlier than I am, later than I am? Where is he brake? How do I use that to my advantage? How do I use it to my disadvantage? I was talking to Stephen last night, and he was saying, you know, I think they're the faster car. It should be fun. Fuel mileage is going to come down to it. He's the one that was telling me 145 miles an hour flat and easy up through the S's. I said it would be easy flat for me too, probably in second gear, not in top gear like you guys are. And then through Oak Tree. Now, according to him, it looked like the numbers that he gave me, and I'm not going to give them out to the general public because I don't want that data out there. It looked like he might have a mile an hour or two over some of the Ligier chassis, but again, it really depends on what downforce settings they decided to go with in the race and what downforce settings the Ligier chassis has just in front of him. And Joe Robillard, he's Stephen McAleer's biggest cheerleader. We talked about the relationship that that these guys have, and Joe Robillard just sent me a text and said, McAleer is a god. He really has so much respect for him. He also said, you know, his brother Sam is watching, and he means Stephen McAleer's brother Sam, who passed away this winter, and he was exceptionally close to Stephen, and it shows really what kind of a guy Stephen McAleer is, exceptionally close to his brother who had health issues his entire life, and Sam's picture is on the back of Stephen McAleer's helmet. He carries him with him everywhere he goes, and we actually had a little faux pas with graphics in one of the races earlier in the year, and it said Sam McAleer was in the car, and Stephen sent me a note after the race and said, that was really cool of you guys to do. And I said, I got to be honest with you, buddy, we didn't do it on purpose. It just kind of ended up that way, and I guarantee you that piece of footage they have kept somewhere on a hard drive.
Yeah, very cool. And here's our race leader, though, Garrett Grist, making his final stop of the day. Car comes off the jacks, the fueling is completed. He'll have to wait now until you can see that on his dash at the time. He knows how long it takes to get from where he is right now stationary to the pit lane exit, so he doesn't get below that minimum pit stop time. So it's an agonizing wait there for Garrett Grist. The way he goes now, we'll have to see where he comes out on the racetrack in relation to everybody else. I think, oh, here comes the leader down the hill, so looks like he's going to stay on the lead lap. Here's Garrett Grist. He's heading into turn one as the race leader Rasmus Lind comes off the final corner at full speed, of course. But he is now at the tail end of the lead lap. That's kind of a 33. The gap between the first two as they complete lap 71 is just a second now. It's the closest it's been. So Stephen McAleer is closing in on Rasmus Lind. 143.0 for Rasmus last time around. A full 6/10 quicker was Stephen McAleer in second place. Stephen, he's won a couple of races in this IMSA Prototype Challenge in the past, but his co-driver Joe Robillard, his best is a second place finish. So that would mean a lot for even more for Stephen to bring that first win in this series for his co-driver Joe Robillard.
The fifth round of the 2021 IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship continues from VIR, and the battle for the win between the 6 of Rasmus Lind, Dan Goldberg, and the 43 of Joe Robillard and Stephen McAleer is heating up front. Just over a second at the line the last time by for Rasmus Lind. The battle for the win between two teams who have not stood on the top step of the podium so far in 2021. I've got to believe that no one out there wants it any more than these two drivers, Rasmus Lind in the red and blue number 6, Stephen McAleer in that blue and green white camouflage paint scheme, number 43 from Robillard Racing. Down through the roller coaster, through Hog Pen, 37 minutes to go. And we'll see what the gap is this time by. Good stuff. As you close in on somebody, as I said earlier, I know Stephen McAleer well enough that he's sitting there watching Rasmus Lind as he begins to slowly reel him in, and he's already thinking, where can I get this done? Obviously, if a mistake is made or traffic presents itself in such a way that the gap opens, you've got to pounce on it. But if it's not there, then you need to think your way by. And that's what Stephen McAleer is doing right now. If it comes down to the last lap, Jeremy, you may have to force your way by.
Yeah, and I think Stephen McAleer will be willing to do that because they're not in the championship reckoning. He and Joe Robillard, 6 in the points coming to this weekend. They're 60 points behind Dan Goldberg and Rasmus Lind to win this race. There's 350 points for a win, 320 for second. So he's not in contention for the championship coming in this weekend, further than that behind the overall points leader. But it's all about the win now for Stephen McAleer. Rasmus Lind last time around has responded a 141.8 by our race leader, and he was actually able to extend that margin just a little bit over Stephen McAleer. So I think Rasmus Lind here has things in hand, but he made his pit stop with the outer limits of the fuel range of these cars with 57 minutes to go. So I'm sure he's having to manage that. If they run flat out, these cars, they could do maybe 52 minutes, 53, 54. He's got to run 57 minutes on this final stint of fuel. So he's got to manage that fuel somewhat in the leading car.
Well, and McAleer was right there with him with the stop. And I'm wondering, you talk about aerodynamics and drag. Well, that burns fuel. If you run more downforce, it takes more power to push it through the air. So that's going to have a factor in it as well. And the other thing, Jeremy, is if you're going to save fuel, you need to do it from the time you leave pit lane. If you stop on the outer limits of your fuel run, you need to know that as soon as you leave pit lane, you need to start saving fuel. You can then go after it at the end if your crew tells you you've saved enough. You can't wait for 2, 3, 4 laps to go and then all of a sudden save fuel. You just can't. You can't slow down enough to save the fuel. So for these guys up front right now, Rasmus Lind, Stephen McAleer, if they're saving fuel, they've been doing it, or they needed to be doing it from the time that they left pit lane.
Absolutely right. And this team, Performance Tech Motorsports from South Florida, they are super experienced in these cars. They run them not only in this series but also in club racing in South Florida as well. So they know everything about these cars. They know how to save, the drivers know how to save fuel. And Rasmus Lind is even though he's only 20 years of age, he's still hugely experienced in all sorts of different classes. And although sports car racing and the kind of necessity to look after your fuel burn is relatively new to him still, he's become pretty accomplished at it over the course of this season and last.
Well, I can tell you Stephen McAleer is expert at saving fuel. I've seen him do it throughout multiple classes. He knows how to get it done, and I wonder right now, Jeremy, if that's what we're seeing, because remember McAleer was right there 1.05 seconds behind Lind, and now all of a sudden in the last 2 laps with 33 minutes left to go and really no traffic between them, Stephen McAleer's dropped back to 2.5 seconds. And I wonder if it's just the crew saying, you know what, this is going to be close. So close, in fact, saving a little bit right now would be a good thing. Let's save it now and see if you can go later, because that was uncharacteristic to lose that amount of time in that short a period. So I'm wondering if perhaps McAleer on a little bit of fuel save right now.
Yeah, could be. Rasmus Lind, he's upped his pace at the same time. Could have been a little miscue out on the track for the second place car. If it was, I don't think we saw it. So they're I think managing their expectations. Still 32 minutes to go. Look, that's a long time around here. That's going to be it's going to be what 18 laps or so. So there's plenty of time for things to go wrong on either of these cars. There's still only a couple of seconds between those two leaders, behind them by only 4 seconds is Trent Hinman in the Volt Racing car number 7 as well. So there's a lot of managing expectations. Jacob Edson doing a nice job. I think Dakota Dickerson is just kind of cruising in that car at the moment. He doesn't want anything else to go wrong. He's turning 43s, 1 minute 43s on a regular basis, so he's not pushing too hard at this stage. Jacob Edson's turning his best laps in the car behind him. That's number 17. And in fact, not too far behind him is the number 33, or excuse me, number 40 of David Grant.
And Jacob Edson's another one of those young drivers that we talk about, 26 years old, Colorado. He's won championships in Skip Barber. He's won the Porsche GT3 Cup Challenge USA in the Platinum category in 2017, Lamborghini Super Trofeo Pro-Am Championship racing in 2021 in Lamborghini Super Trofeo with Stephen Agacani, another impressive youngster from California. They've got the World Finals coming up at the end of October in Bassano, Italy. And now Jacob Edson also spending time in a prototype. Impressive, again, that some of these young guys have taken to sports cars and are expanding their opportunities in sports cars, driving both GT-based cars and the prototypes. Think about a Lamborghini Super Trofeo, another IMSA category. Anti-lock brakes, traction control, certainly some good aerodynamics on the car, but a far cry from one of these LMP3-based prototypes and prototype challenge, and yet talent really seems to rise to the top regardless of what series they run in as the 40 hits pit lane.
Okay, fine. Yeah, he needed a splash of fuel there. Was running on the lead lap, though, was David Grant, and that'll relinquish that sixth position to Garrett Grist, who's charging along there behind him. Garrett Grist last up a 41.9, still a pretty full tank of fuel, which is just a little bit slower than our race leader, 142.2 for Rasmus Lind last time around. This will be the final pit stop of the day for number 40, David Grant.
We talked about the speed for the Grant brothers. They've had it. It's just what happens in the races, sometimes of their own doing. We saw problems today on the racetrack for, I believe it was Keith early on with a spin down in turn one, contact with another car, but they have definitely shown speed. Now Stephen McAleer is going to lose a little more time trying to get around I believe that's the 15, Nick Janssen. Janssen leading in the LMP3 2 category, so a different class prototype. Once again, it runs to last year's specs, a little less horsepower, doesn't have the traction control, but in the hands of a very talented race car driver like Nick Janssen, you can still go plenty quick in it. It gives you an idea of the difference in the horsepower and the top speed down the straightaway there. As McAleer easily goes by, but you saw the rolling speed through the corner where the horsepower doesn't really matter nearly as much. And Nick Janssen on pace with Stephen McAleer. Now McAleer onto the front straightaway, 4 seconds back from Rasmus Lind.
He did, and Nick Janssen sharing that car with Mike Watt, who did a couple of races in this. This is the older generation P3 car from Ligier. He did a couple of races back in the first season of LMP3, did Mike Watt, in 2017. Since then, he's been concentrating on Ferrari Challenge. Nick Janssen is now his driver coach, and it's Nick Janssen who drives that number 15 car at the moment and looking to have a comfortable win in the P3-2 category. As Rasmus Lind makes his way through the S's now one more time. That gap, pretty much 4 seconds it is now from first to second, with Rasmus Lind again down in the 41s.
Oh, and a problem for the 34. It's a big off for Camo, now behind the wheel of the 34, and I think that might be there at turn 10. Indeed it is, through the left-hander. This is where we saw Rasmus Lind with his excitement. You know what, Jeremy? I think he gets in there behind the 47 and just loses the air. We were talking about this earlier. You get up close behind these cars, they have so much aerodynamics on them that they create this massive wake of dirty air. And for Camo, you could see he gets in there behind, I believe it was the 47 or the 74 in front of him, and then the front end just washes out. He just can't keep the car at the apex.
It's a big spin. Got his attention. Good news is he didn't hit anything. He's on the upslope again now.
That's the problem.
He's going to struggle for traction, isn't he?
Now.
Yeah, that is going to bring out a caution.
No,
oh, wow.
Now, Jeremy.
Oh, wow. This brings Garrett Grist right back into the picture with 26 minutes now remaining in this race. Yet another full course caution. This is our our fourth of the day.
The fifth round of the 2021 season, coming down towards a checkered flag with 26 minutes to go. But this 3-hour race, longer than the 145 races that they've run before. An hour and 45 minutes is the average sprint race distance. This was a 3-hour race here, 26 minutes to go. The fourth full course caution of the day, and this will pack up the leaders up front. Jeremy, it is going to be a wild one for the remaining 20 minutes. You got to figure it's going to take 3 or 4 minutes to get this problem sorted out and back to green. And when we do go back to green, the gloves are going to come off.
Yeah, this of course is going to erase any fuel concerns that everybody might have had. So it'll be flat out to the end from here. The question is, how hard have they used their Michelin tyres? How much grip is there going to be left in those tyres for the final 20 minutes or so? So it shouldn't take too long to get this car out of the way of this race. So it's going to be really interesting, and we're going to see quite a battle with Rasmus Lind leading from Stephen McAleer, who really wants to get that first win for Joe Robillard. Trent Hinman in third place. Dakota Dickerson, who did not want to see this caution period because that's going to put him under pressure now from Jacob Edson, and particularly Garrett Grist, who is he one lap down, or is he just on the tail end of
I think he should be on the tail end of the lead lap. And hats off to the AMR safety team, who right there on the scene immediately, whether it's something minor like this spin here for Antoine Cambeau there in turn 10 or more major impacts, they're always right there, always doing a great job. And I can tell you, as a former driver, when you know that you've got a safety program like IMSA has put in place, like the safety program they have, it makes you feel exceptionally good as a driver and very confident if you ever have a problem on the racetrack when you look up and you see that safety team that's there.
Yeah, fantastic job they do. They put a strap on that car and pull it out. They've got a bit more traction in that safety vehicle they do on the race car with its slick tyres, no tread on those racing tyres. So therefore no traction, particularly on the wet grass, but the truck will be able to pull it out of the way, and then we'll get back to green again. He's got a long way to go to find some grey stuff, get off the green and onto the grey, onto the asphalt, and get it back to the pit lane.
That's what I always say about these safety teams as well. They're not just rescue workers, somebody who can go grab a car and hook it up and tow it in like perhaps your local wrecker driver. A lot of them are EMTs, and they're especially trained in the use of extrication tools. The safety car that's there with the medical personnel that arrive, the doctors and the safety personnel in the medical building. When you arrive there, if you've made contact with something, you're going to see those people, and they are always there to work with you and make sure that you are safe and you are well. And you just can't say enough for them. They're especially well trained, and they love what they do. And that's the other thing that makes them so good at what they do, is that they're racers at heart, and they're there to look after your safety and your well-being, and to make sure that the race gets back going as soon as we can. And for Rasmus Lind, he's sitting there, he gets to take a breath. And I wonder, Jeremy, if every time he runs through turn 10 there, can't help but think about what happened about 30 or 45 minutes ago when he came through turn 10 at speed.
Yeah, that's right. And
that will be on the highlight reel for a long time.
Yeah, it will, yeah. And boy, that was a dramatic ride that Rasmus Lind took there. I think, maybe
there you go.
He was closely following number 21 car, kind of got the air off the front of the car and just allowed the back end to come around and overtake it. But boy, that was a masterful recovery by Rasmus Lind. Didn't lose a position. It cost him about 2.5 seconds. That's it. And right back on the case again, and off he goes. Brilliant stuff by Rasmus Lind.
Don't you know Dakota Dickerson was going, "Are you kidding me?"
Yes.
Are you kidding me? I thought I was about to pick up another position. You got to be kidding me.
Yeah, that was pretty wild.
So the shock cover missing off the 6. We saw that come off down the back straightaway in the early going, obviously has not slowed down Rasmus Lindh. The spin in turn 10 has not slowed him down, and looking for the first win of the season. But now you said it, Jeremy, and I think this is the most valid point that we have to go on right now. This has been by the time we get back to green, this will be a 6 to 8 minute full course caution without a doubt. So we'll do another lap at least behind the safety car. Fuel concerns are gone. It's go time. If you've got anything, it's time to show it.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. And this is why it's going to be a fascinating contest. It's going to be Jockeying in the second position, Ligier that leads, and then a string of Ligiers behind in third, fourth, fifth, and sixth places. We've got 6 cars on the lead lap then. Number 6, number 43, number 7, number 54, number 17, and the fastest car on the track, number 33, Garrett Grist from Grimsby, Ontario, Canada. And he is going to be charging. He set the fastest lap of the race, 140.735, which is a second quicker than the old lap record set in the previous generation of car by Carl Kirkwood last season. I'm surprised it's not quicker than that, actually. But he's also the not quite the fastest lap of the weekend. He turned a 140.6 in the first session. Yes, that would have been Friday morning, actually. Was it Friday morning? Gosh, I can't remember now. Was it yesterday morning?
I can't remember what I had for breakfast.
It seems like an age ago. In any case, it doesn't matter. It was the first practice session of the weekend, and Garrett Grist has almost matched that pace in a race. That's pretty good going. So he's going to be charging hard here from the 6th position when we get back to green.
The top 6 cars all on the lead lap. I believe Dakota Dickerson has lap traffic, or it looked like he did. I don't know if there will be a wave by or not. So will he have clear sailing to the rear wing of Trent Hinman in front of him? To see. Now Mike Skeen is in there in the number 3 car being shown a lap down. He's between himself and that bright yellow number 7 Volt lighting Ligier of Trent Hinman. So Dickerson's going to have to get by Skeen. And I said earlier that both Skeen and Kazimierz had been exceptional with letting the leaders through, kind of understanding where they fit into the order. It'll be interesting to see how easy Mike Skeen makes it for Dakota Dickerson. But then again, how hard is Dickerson going to press, knowing what he's got in hand in the championship right now with the problems for the 21?
Yeah, I mean, Mike Skeen, he's a lap down. If he can pass all those cars ahead of him, he can get back on the lead lap. So that's what he's thinking right now. Mike Skeen is a very experienced driver. He's won in just about everything there is to drive. Originally brought up not too far away from VAR, so this is kind of his home track. It's certainly one that he very much enjoys. He lives now in Charlotte, North Carolina, but from the Virginia area, and he's won one of these races in the past. He finished second in his only other outing of the season. That was at Mid-Ohio. So he knows the car, he knows the tracks. He's got a fast car underneath him. He's in 4th position on the road at the moment, and I think he's going to be pressing to try and get back on the lead lap, because if there is another full course caution, it'll give him an opportunity to make up even more positions.
IMSA Prototype Challenge from VIR, Virginia International Raceway, the only 3-hour race on the 2021 calendar, about to go back to green with just over 17 minutes to go. And Rasmus Lindh, the red, the blue, number 6, leads Stephen McAleer down into turn 1. Lindh, a little lockup. McAleer looks to the inside. He's going to get it done. McAleer to the lead.
Yeah, wow. And just a little bit too late on the brakes there for Rasmus Lindh, locked him up, and he did well to maintain control of the car, but not quickly enough to prevent Stephen McAleer going past. And now we've got another race leader in this race. It's car number 43. It's Stephen McAleer who leads from Rasmus Lindh.
It is not over by any stretch of the imagination. We talked about how the Duquesne chassis seems to take a little more time to come up to speed, but it was Rasmus Lindh with the lockup into turn 1 that sends that car wide, opens the door, and McAleer says, "Thank you very much. I am through." And he is. Can he stay there as Rasmus Lind needs to turn his attention to the number 7 of Trent Hinman just behind, and now Dakota Dickerson has indeed gotten past Mike Skeen. Skeen, we talked about being a lap down, and Dickerson on the rear wing of the number 7 right now. Can he get to a podium position?
Wow. And it was, I think this is the 5th different leader in the race, and will be Stephen McAleer with 16 minutes remaining as Dakota Dickerson moves out to try and think about making a pass on the Trent Hinman. Doesn't pull that one off.
And Trent Hinman.
Excuse me, Ryan, carry on.
No, I was going to say Trent Hinman, a tough customer to pass, especially at the end of the straightaway. It looks like Dickerson has a run off of Hogpin, though. What does he have as they head down to turn 1? Trent Hinman could care less about Dakota Dickerson's championship hopes.
Yeah, alongside in the braking area on the outside is Dakota Dickerson. How brave is he going to be?
Over under?
Not brave. Not. Well, he's going to. Yes. Wow. Side by side, then heading towards turn 2 and 3. This is going to be a tremendous battle between these two. Is he going to hang on around the outside line? That's a bit brave.
Over under again. Is he going to get it done? Side by side. They've been side by side through multiple corners. There has not been any contact, and now looking back across to the inside, trying to do the over-under again through the turn 4-5 area. Nothing doing for Dakota Dickerson, but that was good stuff. Those two young drivers showing immense talent, immense respect, and some great racing there in that turn 3, 4, and 5 area. Dakota Dickerson would certainly like to move up a spot.
Wow, that was pretty close out there, wasn't it? And I think there were certainly some elbows out. I think at going into turn 4, between 4 and 5, between those two, they were kind of banging mirrors there almost, but they both got away with it, and they continue in the same position with Rasmus Lind. Trent Hinman still in 3rd place.
Are you surprised by the level of risk Dakota Dickerson willing to take for 20 points, Jeremy?
Yeah, actually, I sort of am. But he's a racer. I love it. I think it's great. He wants to finish on the podium if he possibly can. The championship, he's going to have a pretty good championship lead after this weekend, but it certainly is not wrapped up for the number 54 team by any stretch of the imagination.
Just under 14 minutes to go in the 5th round of IMSA Prototype Challenge, and the battle for the final podium position has been intense, and great battles really all around the racetrack. The number 33 of Garrett Grist moving forward. He was the fastest car on the racetrack until he had to make his last pit stop. That dropped him back in the order, but this battle between the 54 and the 7, Dakota Dickerson, who should be the championship leader if he finishes in this position at the end of the race, trying to get one more position away from Trent Hinman just in front. And I don't think we would have seen that level of aggressiveness, Jeremy, had the level of respect not been there between these two drivers. I think Dakota Dickerson felt comfortable pressing that hard, knowing that Trent Hinman is someone who will race you hard but clean.
Yeah, that's right. Two former winners of the Team USA Scholarship, in actual fact, both open-wheel drivers earlier in their careers, and now established sports car veterans. And we talked about Trent Hinman earlier on. He's driving in 3 different races this weekend. Had a good strong run yesterday in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. He's got another 2 hours of racing, sharing also with Alan Bryn Yolston in the Michelin Pilot Challenge race that will take place a little later on this afternoon. He'll be driving an Aston Martin in that race. So it's a busy day and weekend for Trent Hinman, but he's a young professional that is continuing to move up the ranks.
Lap traffic now in front of Stephen McAleer. It's Tonise Kazmits. The good thing is he runs a good pace. The other good thing is he's been very respectful throughout the day, letting the leaders through when they get there. What does Kazmits have in hand now as they head into turn 1? Not just pulling over and letting them drive by, but I got a feeling that when they get there, he won't make it too difficult, and certainly that's exactly what Stephen McAleer wants to see. And look at this for 3rd. The battle continues. This is what we saw last time. Dakota Dickerson now on the outside line. That's where Hinman was the lap before. It's what got him to the front, and now Dakota Dickerson mirrored what Trent Hinman did last time around. He takes the position. He's got the podium position.
That was a great pass by Dakota Dickerson. Around the outside of 4 to give the inside for 5. Brilliant move by Dakota Dickerson. But look who's right behind both of them. That is Garrett Grist, who's in that battle as well now. He wants to get that 3rd position as well. You know that. And not too far behind him is Jacob Edson too, who's gradually gaining the experience in that the O'Gara Motorsport US Racetronics team as well, car number 17.
McAleer a little off of the apex of Oak Tree that time. I thought it might give Rasmus Lind a little bit of a run, but Lind cannot capitalize, and McAleer maintains the gap as they head down to the end of the back straightaway. And I kind of look at the ebb and flow again. The Duquesne chassis in the hands of Stephen McAleer, the Ligier in the hands of Rasmus Lind. They've got their strengths and weaknesses in different areas on the racetrack, and right now Stephen McAleer focused forward. Remember, both of these drivers, both of these teams winless in 2021. One of them, more than likely, is going to take a victory here unless they take each other out. And so they are pressing on. It's about pride. It's about adding points. It's about doing the job. These 2 young race car drivers are paid to get the car to the front. It's what they're trying to do. And it's exactly what Garrett Grist is trying to do, as he has a battle on his hands with Trent Hinman in the bright yellow number 7 just in front.
Yeah, and Trent Hinman, he's clearly struggling with that car at the moment. He's having a hard time, particularly in turn 3 there. The car steps sideways, and he then has to get a bit defensive into 4, so it's costing him time, but he's still managed to keep Garrett Grist behind him at this stage. But with still just under 10 minutes remaining, it's going to be a tall order for Trent Hinman to keep Garrett Grist behind him for the end, until the end of this race. But for Dakota Dickerson, who did get past Trent Hinman, he's going to be hoping that it takes Grist longer rather than shorter to get past into that challenging position into 4th.
IMSA Prototype Challenge continues from VIR, round 5 of 6, the only 3-hour race on the schedule. Closing down on 9 minutes to go. The battle for the lead, less than half a second the last time by at the line. The 43 of Stephen McAleer leading Rasmus Lind. The championship leaders and contenders not up front fighting for the win right now. The 21, Maurice Grant's coming into this round with a championship lead. That car with problems well back in the order. And Dakota Dickerson, Josh Sargé, they came into this weekend in 2nd. They sit 3rd on the racetrack right now. If it were to end this way, it will be a big points day for them, but we still have a long way to go. Brian Till and Jeremy Shaw with you, and this has been a great one.
Yeah, and the good news for number 21 team, by the way, is because with Antoine Comeau having spun off the road and out of the car, the number 34 car for Conquest Racing and JMF Motorsports, that means that Hugo de Wilde has now moved past for another position, so up into 11th place now. That'll be worth 200 points for that number 21 team, and particularly because he's not in championship races. This is his first event of the season. But his co-driver Moritz Kranz, those extra 10 points could be very, very useful come the end of the season in a few weeks' time.
Well, think about that, Jeremy. I mean, just 15 minutes ago, maybe 20 minutes ago, they were 13th in class and 180 points. Now they're 10th in class, or 11th in class, with 200 points. So a 20-point swing. Why do they not quit when the car has a problem and breaks down and it's sitting there in pit lane? Because you've got an hour and a half to go, and if you can get it back on the racetrack and salvage even one more position, it's another 10, maybe another 20 points if you can salvage 2 more positions. That's what the 21 team has done, and they are out there collecting points. And that battle right there, Garrett Grist in the 33, that bright yellow and red, going to battle with Trent Hinman, a little argy-bargy, as Calvin Fish would say. They're into turn 14, a pretty good smack wheel to wheel.
Was coming down the straight there and getting that straight line speed advantage that the number 33 car has. He wasn't very he was very forceful, wasn't he? Trent Hinman trying to sort of squeeze him down there on the inside of the corner, but Chris just, well, yeah, that was unnecessary.
It almost looks like Trent Hinman thought that Grist was going to clear him pretty quickly and aggressively, and he was going to drop in behind him because the contact was left front to right rear in a place where you wouldn't really expect that. So think about where you sit in these cars on the right side. Perhaps Trent Hinman just kind of lost perspective on the 33 there. That's typically not something that you would see out of either one of those drivers. No harm, no foul. They have continued on, and the battle up front continues on with just over 6 minutes to go. It's been ebb and flow ever since Stephen McAleer was able to take the lead on the restart. That little bit of lockup for Rasmus Lind into turn one, opened the door, McAleer through, and it has stayed with this half-second lead. It was 0.49 seconds, 0.51 seconds, 0.50 seconds. I'd say that's consistent, and it's consistent in McAleer's favor.
It is, so that's exactly what he needed to do there. But the fastest car on the track last time around was the third place car of Dakota Dickerson, who was only a couple of seconds behind, and he just turned his best lap of the race, 141.543. So I think he was, well, he wouldn't have needed to save fuel after that pit stop, but he's now running a lot faster than he was before we had that latest caution period. And
he is right there now. Think about it, he stopped a little bit later. He has a little fresher tires on the car as well, so perhaps that's what we're seeing. But Dakota Dickerson closing in now in that podium position. And in fact, if you look at the 54 team, Dakota Dickerson, Josh Jarget, they have not been off of the podium all season long. I always say consistency wins championships. You find a way, you're always there. You should always be there. If you finish third in a third place car, you won your class for the day. And I think that's what they've done all season long. They've presented the best car they can. They've done the best job they can. They've had a win, 3 other podium positions, and it looks like if they can hold on for another 4.5 minutes, they'll have another podium position, and they'll have the championship lead when we leave Virginia.
But Dakota Dickerson once again on the last lap set his fastest lap of the race at 141.4, but the but is that Garrett Grist behind him turned at 1:40.8. He made up more than half a second on that last lap, did Garrett Grist, so he hasn't given up hopes of a podium finish by any means.
1 minute and 42 second laps basically on average. Grist is running out of time, so is Rasmus Lind. The gap was half a second the last time by at the line, and I think it may be just slightly greater than that this time as Stephen McAleer one more time leads through Hogpen and down the front straightaway. It should just be a couple of laps left here at Virginia International Raceway for Stephen McAleer. Can he bring Joe Robillard their first victory in the 2021 season? Joe Robillard's first victory in Prototype Challenge.
Yeah, it's going to be awfully closest, actually, whether it's 2 laps or 3. There are about 3 minutes 42, I think, remaining. They're turning 1:40 something, so it's going to be fairly tight. But he's still leading. Actually, this is probably the biggest lead he's had now as he heads up through the S's and towards the climbing S's on his 89th lap. But lurking there behind him remains Rasmus Lind, and not far behind him also is Dakota Dickerson. Closing on both of them is Garrett Grist as well. Actually, last lap around for Garrett Grist wasn't quite so good. He must have made a mistake, I think. Cost him a little bit of ground to Dakota Dickerson, but this race is far from over.
Far from over. It was 0.8 of a second, I should say, at the line the last time by Stephen McAleer over Rasmus Lind, but it is less than that as they come off of Oak Tree with 2.5 minutes yet to go. Looks like 2 more laps, Jeremy, I would think. I don't think they're going to get to the line and see a white flag this time by, do you?
It's going to be tight.
It's going to be close.
Right, yeah. But no, I think it's going to be 2 more laps, but it is close. 1 minute, yeah, they're within. I was 10 seconds out, wasn't I? So no, it won't be white flag this time. It will be next time around.
So next time by, it'll be 2 more laps now for Stephen McAleer. Just another 2 minutes. He's got to hold on and keep Rasmus Lind behind. The Michelin tires beginning to lose their edge. Car getting lighter on fuel, dancing around just a little bit more. And while the car and the tire may be going away, Rasmus Lind is not going away, Jeremy. In fact, he is closer than he has been in the last 15 minutes to the rear wing of the 43 of Stephen McAleer.
Yeah, and Dakota Dickerson's, he's only another 10, 12 car lengths back as well. So if these two get into a heated battle, then Dakota Dickerson could be there ready to pounce. And over the last couple of laps, he just turned his fastest lap again as Dakota Dickerson in that third position, a 141. Excuse me, no, that was a previous number. He was in the 49 certainly. He's losing no ground to the leaders, and he's in a podium position as well. He's managed to maintain that gap over the last couple of laps from Garrett Grist, who is still in fourth place.
Looks like Stephen McAleer is able to get that great run off of Oak Tree every lap. Leads, pulls out another car length, maybe two, over Rasmus Lind. And that gives him some breathing room. Hog pin, one last time, 30 seconds to go. White flag, this time by. Round 5, closing down from VIR for Prototype Challenge. Stephen McAleer, one lap to go. The first victory of the season for Robillard Racing. Stephen McAleer, Joe Robillard. It lies less than one lap away, but there's no one who would rather throw a wrench into that than Rasmus Lind, the driver in the number 6. He and Dan Goldberg have been on speed all weekend long and have been so impressive. Rasmus Lind with that spin up in turn 10 earlier in the race without losing a position and has not gone away. They've had a couple of trials, a couple of tribulations, a couple of scary moments, but they've held on. What can they do? Lind there seems to be a little better through the beginning of the climbing S's, had closed in. Perhaps that run off of turn 5 gives him a little bit of advantage, closes in, but if you're gonna do it, you need to get it done now. Heavy braking into turn 11, into 12. He looks inside, he's there. They're gonna make contact side by side off the corner. McAleer back to second place. What are the officials going to say about that? They'll take a look. What's McAleer going to have to say? He's to the inside. This is the preferred line into the braking zone at the end of the back straightaway. Can he hold it? Side by side, wheel to wheel. It doesn't get any closer than this. Stephen McAleer, Rasmus Lind. Who's going to make it through the corner? McAleer is off. Lind goes through.
Wow.
Just like that. You had to get it done. There was time running out, only a few corners left to go. Rasmus Lind, spin to win at VIR down the front straightaway, takes the checkered flag. The first win of the season for Dan Goldberg and Rasmus Lind, and it came with the gloves off. Stephen McAleer getting the worst of that.
You've got a feel for Stephen McAleer, but I tell you what, did Rasmus Lind want that win or not? He certainly did. What a great move. I mean, look, yeah, that's forceful racing on the last lap. Yes, there was contact between the two. The door was open there and he stuck it down the inside. And at the turn-in point, the number 6 car was absolutely, from my perspective, alongside. Let's have a look. Coming into through turn 11, the first of those two right-handers, he just dives down the inside. You know, it's a very forceful pass, no doubt about it. But McAleer could have, perhaps with reflection, should have closed the door a little bit more.
The question is, here's the problem for McAleer and down to 13. Tries to stay with him around the outside and just loses it. My only question about the turn 11-12 incident, Jeremy, is does the 6 stay on the racetrack if the 43 isn't there?
Well, yeah, it's a good question, and it's a moot point because he did stay on the racetrack.
That's why I'm glad you and I are doing this and we're not in race control.
I hated to see him back there because he driven an absolutely brilliant race and was on course here for the victory. And whatever happens, even if there is a penalty, he's not going to win the race even now. And he tried to brave that down the outside going into turn 14 at the top of the hill, and he came off second base. But that was, for me, that was just great racing between two very talented drivers. And take nothing away from Dakota Dickerson, who might end up actually with a win if it all turns out to his favour. He was right there across the line, just 0.3 of a second behind in second position. And Garrett Griss, he was within a second of at the checkered flag as well. But that was a great motor race. And yes, it was a very, very forceful pass. But look, that's the last lap of a professional motor race. You've got to go for it.
Yeah, spectacular stuff. Unofficial results look like this. The number 6, Rasmus Lind, Dan Goldberg, they'll take the victory. Dakota Dickerson and Josh Sargent, what a huge day for them. They'll take the championship lead with a second place finish. Garrett Griss, one of the fastest cars on the racetrack. Good run for he and Ari Belo. When you look through the rest of the top 10, what you don't see is the 21 of the Milner Motorsports team, and that is a problem. Maurice Krantz dropping well back in the order and well back to second in the championship run. A great, great race from VIR, IMSA Prototype Challenge Competition. It has been a spectacular one. It's what we expected, the only 3-hour race of the season. This is the kind of racing that Virginia International Raceway breeds. One more race to go to decide the championship in Prototype Challenge. It will come at you from Michelin Raceway, Road Atlanta, in just a few weeks' time. For Jeremy Shaw and Brian Hill, thanks for joining us. This championship is far from over. Stay with us.